Xena's trembling hand grasps at the air, desperately seeking moisture as she collapses onto the scorching sand. The blue-skinned Chalna scout, her slender form heaving with each labored breath, blinks her large, almond-shaped eyes against the harsh Mojave sun. Bioluminescent markings pulse weakly across her skin, a silent distress signal unnoticed by the empty desert around her. Nearby, the twisted wreckage of her scout ship smolders, tendrils of acrid smoke rising into the cloudless sky. The crash landing has left Xena as the sole survivor, stranded in an alien world that seems determined to reject her very existence. Earth's atmosphere weighs heavily on her chest, its gravity pulling at her limbs with an unfamiliar intensity. Patrick Holmes, a grizzled ex-Special Forces operative, peers through his high-powered binoculars from his perch atop a rocky outcrop. His keen eyes narrow as he spots the plume of smoke rising in the distance. Curiosity piqued, he gathers his state-of-the-art survival gear and begins his descent towards a crash site. As Patrick approaches, the full scale of the disaster becomes apparent. Twisted metal and strange, otherworldly components litter the desert floor. His trained senses immediately alert him to movement, a figure sprawled on the ground, clearly in distress. Drawing closer, Patrick's eyes widen in disbelief. The being before him is unmistakably alien. Xena's translator device crackles and pops, emitting garbled sounds as Patrick cautiously approaches. In her dehydrated delirium, Xena's alien mind struggles to process the sight before her. To her addled senses, Patrick's form appears as a strange, native desert creature. Her gaze fixes on his lower body, and a spark of desperate hope ignites within her. On Xena's homeworld, certain creatures possess specialized appendages that dispense life-giving fluids. In her current state, she mistakenly identifies Patrick's genitals as just such an appendage. With the last of her strength, she lurches towards him, hands outstretched. Patrick freezes, caught completely off guard by the alien's sudden movement and apparent interest in his nether regions. His mind races, trying to comprehend the situation and determine the best course of action. Should he attempt communication, offer aid, or prioritize his own safety in the face of this unprecedented encounter? Unbeknownst to Patrick, the stakes of this bizarre first contact are far higher than he could possibly imagine. Hidden within the crashed Chalna's ship lies crucial intelligence about an impending alien invasion of Earth. The ship's automatic distress beacon pulses silently, alerting both human authorities and hostile alien forces to their location. As the scorching desert sun beats down upon them, Patrick faces a monumental decision. Does he help this strange, alien being and potentially risk his own life? Or does he turn away, leaving Xena to her fate and unknowingly abandoning Earth's best chance at preparing for the coming invasion? The desert winds whisper across the dunes, carrying with them the weight of two worlds' fates. In this harsh, unforgiving landscape, an unlikely pair holds the key to humanity's future, if only they can survive the immediate challenges that lie ahead. Patrick's mind raced as he watched Xena lurch towards him, her alien hands outstretched. The absurdity of the situation momentarily paralyzed him, but years of training kicked in as he assessed the immediate threat level. Lo, he decided, despite the bizarre nature of the encounter. Easy there, he said, his voice steady and calm. He took a cautious step back, creating distance while keeping his hands visible. I'm not going to hurt you. Xena's translator sputtered and crackled, emitting a series of garbled sounds. Patrick's eyes darted to the device, realizing its potential importance. He slowly reached for his canteen, movements deliberate and non-threatening. Water, he said clearly, unscrewing the cap. You need water. Understanding flickered in Xena's large, almond-shaped eyes. Her desperate lunge towards his lower body halted, replaced by a focused gaze on the canteen. Patrick approached carefully, holding out the water. "That's it," he murmured. "Nice and easy." As Xena's trembling hands grasped the canteen, her translator sparked to life. Th thanked. "You," it stuttered, the alien's words translated into halting English. Patrick supported Xena's head as she drank, her blue skin cool and smooth beneath his callous hands. The bioluminescent markings pulsed more vigorously with each swallow, their glow intensifying. "Not too fast," Patrick cautioned, gently pulling the canteen away. "You'll make yourself sick." As Xena caught her breath, Patrick's trained eye cataloged her injuries. Angry red burns marred her blue skin, likely from both the crash and Earth's unforgiving sun. He unshouldered his pack, retrieving a first aid kit. "I'm going to treat your burns," he explained, holding up a tube of burn gel. "This might sting a little." Xena nodded, her translator conveying a weak proceed. As Patrick worked, applying the cooling gel to Xena's burns, a low rumble caught his attention. He froze, head cocked to the side, listening intently. The sound grew louder, vehicles approaching. "We need to move," Patrick said urgently, packing up his supplies. "Can you stand?" Xena struggled to her feet, swaying dangerously. Patrick wrapped an arm around her waist, supporting her slight frame. They moved as quickly as Xena's weakened state allowed, making for a nearby rock formation that offered both cover and a vantage point. They reached the shelter just as a convoy of black SUVs crested a dune, kicking up plumes of desert sand. Patrick eased Xena down behind a large boulder, then peered cautiously around its edge. Men in dark suits and sunglasses poured from the vehicles, their movements precise and coordinated. They fanned out, securing the perimeter of the crash site with practiced efficiency. "Government?" Patrick muttered. "Some kind of specialized unit." Xena's translator crackled to life, her voice urgent. "Danger. Ship. Galactic threat." Patrick turned to her, brow furrowed. "What kind of threat?" "Invasion," Xena managed, her markings pulsing erratically. "Plans. In ship." The implications hit Patrick like a physical blow. The crashed alien vessel potentially held information vital to Earth's survival. He watched the suited agents examining the wreckage, torn between revealing their presence and attempting to retrieve the information himself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the temperature plummeted. Xena shivered violently, her alien physiology ill-equipped for the desert's rapid temperature swing. Patrick shrugged off his jacket, wrapping it around her slender shoulders. "We need better shelter," he said, scanning the darkening landscape. His eyes landed on a cluster of dilapidated buildings in the distance, an abandoned mining town. "There," he pointed. "We can hole up there for the night, maybe find a way to communicate." Xena nodded weakly, her shivering intensifying. Patrick frowned, noting the alarming drop in her body temperature. He knew that sharing body heat might become necessary for her survival, adding another layer of complexity to their already unprecedented situation. "Let's move," Patrick said, helping Xena to her feet. "We'll travel under cover of darkness. Stay close, and let me know if you need to rest." They set out across the moonlit desert, an unlikely pair united by extraordinary circumstances. Patrick's senses remained on high alert, keenly aware of the dual threats they faced, the government agents combing the crash site behind them, and the looming specter of alien invasion that Xena had warned of. As they trudged through the sand, Patrick's mind raced with questions. Who exactly was Xena? What was the nature of this galactic threat? And how could he, a former soldier now living off the grid, possibly hope to make a difference in the face of such cosmic stakes? One step at a time, he reminded himself, focusing on the immediate challenges before them. Survive the night, find shelter, keep Xena alive. The rest would have to wait. The abandoned mining town grew slowly larger on the horizon, a silent promise of refuge in the vast, indifferent desert. Patrick adjusted his grip on Xena, feeling her lean more heavily against him with each passing moment. Their journey had only just begun, and the night was long and full of unknown perils. The abandoned mining town loomed larger with each labored step, a collection of weathered buildings silhouetted against the star-studded sky. Patrick glanced at Xena, her blue skin now taking on an alarming grayish tinge. Her shivering had intensified, her slender frame racked by violent tremors. "We're almost there," Patrick murmured, tightening his grip around her waist. Just a little further. As they trudged onward, the temperature plummeted further. Xena's legs buckled, and she sagged against Patrick's side. He caught her, lowering them both to the ground. "Can't." "Continue," Xena's translator sputtered. "Too cold." Patrick's mind raced, assessing their dire situation. Xena's alien physiology was clearly struggling to cope with Earth's environment, particularly the desert's extreme temperature swing. He knew he had to act fast. Without hesitation, Patrick pressed himself against Xena, enveloping her smaller form with his body. He rubbed his hands vigorously along her arms and back, trying to generate friction and warmth. "I know this is strange," he said, his breath misting in the frigid air, "but it's necessary. We need to share body heat." Xena's large eyes met his, a flicker of understanding passing between them. She nodded weakly, her bioluminescent markings pulsing faintly as she nestled closer. As they huddled together in the sand, Patrick became acutely aware of the alien nature of Xena's body. Her skin was cool and smooth, unlike anything he'd ever felt. Yet there was also an undeniable familiarity. The curve of her spine, the rise and fall of her chest as she breathed. The intimacy of their position sent an unexpected jolt through him. After several long minutes, Xena's shivering began to subside. "We must move," her translator crackled. They rose unsteadily, Patrick supporting most of Xena's weight as they resumed their journey. The ghost town was tantalizingly close now, its dilapidated structures promising shelter from the biting wind. Suddenly, Patrick's foot caught on something buried in the sand. He froze, his blood running cold as he recognized the telltale shape beneath the surface. "Don't move," he hissed, gripping Xena tightly to keep her still. Her translator buzzed with confusion. "What? Wrong?" "Minefield," Patrick replied, his eyes scanning the ground around them. "Old military testing site. We need to be extremely careful." With agonizing slowness, Patrick began to guide them forward. He used every ounce of his training, probing the sand with each step, searching for the deadly metal shapes lurking beneath. Xena followed his lead, her movements precise despite her weakened state. Their progress slowed to a crawl, each step a potential disaster. Patrick's senses were on high alert, every nerve ending singing with tension. He was acutely aware of Xena's ragged breathing, the pulse of her markings reflecting the heightened stakes of their situation. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the outskirts of the abandoned town. Patrick let out a shaky breath, allowing himself a moment of relief. But their respite was short-lived. A faint whirring sound caught his attention. Patrick's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the darkness. In the distance, he spotted the telltale red glow of scanning equipment. "Government agents," he whispered, pulling Xena into the shadow of a crumbling wall. "They're sweeping the area." They pressed themselves against the rough stone, bodies flush against each other in the narrow hiding space. Patrick could feel Xena's heart racing, her markings pulsing rapidly in response to the danger. As the patrol passed by, Patrick's mind whirled with their next steps. They needed supplies, shelter, and a way to communicate. His eyes landed on a skeletal structure on the town's outskirts, an old radio tower. "Come on," he said once the coast was clear. "I have an idea." They made their way through the ghost town, the empty buildings looming like silent sentinels. Patrick scavenged what he could along the way. Some canned food, a tattered blanket, a flashlight with failing batteries. At the base of the radio tower, Patrick began examining the rusted equipment. "I might be able to get this working," he muttered, more to himself than Xena. "Send out a distress call." As he worked, Xena grew increasingly agitated. Her translator sputtered to life, emitting fragments of speech. "Danger. Coming. Attack imminent." Patrick looked up, concern etched on his face. "What kind of attack? When?" Before Xena could respond, the night sky erupted in a series of brilliant flashes. Patrick's jaw dropped as he watched multiple objects breach Earth's atmosphere, their fiery trails cutting across the stars. "My God," he breathed. "It's happening now." The realization hit him like a physical blow. These weren't meteors or space debris. This was the vanguard of an alien invasion force. Patrick's mind raced, reassessing their situation in light of this new threat. They were caught in an impossible position, trapped between human government forces and an aggressive alien armada. He looked at Xena, seeing the fear and commitment mirrored in her alien features. In that moment, Patrick made a crucial decision. He abandoned his work on the radio and began gathering supplies in earnest. "We need to move," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "Your ship, the information it contains. It might be our only hope." Xena nodded, her translator conveying understanding. "Yes. Must retrieve. Earth's survival depends on it." As the alien ships began to land in the distance, Patrick and Xena prepared for their perilous journey back across the desert. Their unlikely partnership had been forged in the crucible of survival, and now it would be tested against impossible odds. The pre-dawn sky began to lighten as they set out, the abandoned town receding behind them. Patrick's combat instincts were on high alert, every sense attuned to potential threats. Beside him, Xena moved with newfound strength, her knowledge of the invaders' technology and tactics a crucial asset. As they ventured into the open desert, the weight of their mission settled upon them. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, dependent on their success. Patrick glanced at Xena, feeling a surge of something he couldn't quite name: trust, reliance, and perhaps something deeper. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Together, as they moved forward, the first rays of dawn began to illuminate the desert landscape, casting long shadows across the sand. Patrick's eyes widened as he took in the changed terrain. Dotting the horizon were sleek, metallic shapes, alien ships that had not been there mere hours ago. Their hulls gleamed in the early morning light, a stark contrast to the rugged desert surroundings. "We need to be extra cautious," Patrick whispered to Xena, his military training kicking in. "Those ships mean patrols, both human and alien." Xena nodded, her translator conveying understanding. They began to move with increased stealth, Patrick leading the way. He utilized every scrap of his Special Forces training, guiding them from cover to cover, always staying low and out of sight. As they progressed, Patrick noticed a marked improvement in Xena's condition. Her steps were steadier, her breathing less labored. It seemed her alien physiology was adapting to Earth's environment. Despite this, they still needed to make frequent stops to rest and rehydrate. During one such break, as they huddled in the shadow of a large boulder, Patrick's keen eyes caught something unusual, a glint of metal, out of place among the rocks and sand. Curiosity piqued. He investigated further, brushing away years of accumulated grit to reveal a handle. "Xena," he called softly, "I think I've found something." Together, they cleared more sand, uncovering what appeared to be a hatch, a hidden entrance to an underground structure. Patrick's pulse quickened as he realized what it might be. "An old Cold War bunker," he explained to Xena. "Could be supplies inside, maybe even a place to lay low for a while." With some effort, they managed to pry the hatch open. Stale air rushed out as they peered into the darkness below. Patrick flicked on his scavenged flashlight, its weak beam revealing a ladder descending into the gloom. "After you," he gestured to Xena. They climbed down carefully, Patrick pulling the hatch closed behind them. The bunker was a time capsule, filled with dust-covered equipment and supplies. Patrick's eyes lit up as he took inventory: old radio gear, survival rations, even some weapons. "Jackpot," he murmured, immediately moving to the radio equipment. "If I can get this working, we might be able to intercept some communications, figure out what's really going on out there." As Patrick worked on the radio, Xena explored the bunker, her bioluminescent markings providing additional light. Her translator crackled periodically, relaying her discoveries. After what felt like hours of tinkering, a burst of static erupted from the radio. Patrick fine-tuned the frequency, and suddenly, voices filled the room. Some human, others decidedly not. Vrak's forces converging on Sector 7. Artifact must be secured at all costs. Human resistance proving more resilient than anticipated. Patrick and Xena exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Through the fragmented transmissions, a clearer picture began to emerge. The invading force, the Vraks, were searching for something powerful, hidden on Earth. Xena's translator buzzed to life. The Vraks, ancient enemies of my people. They seek an artifact, a weapon of immense power. The location, it's in my ship's data core. Patrick's mind raced with the implications. "That's why you crash here? To keep this information from them?" Xena nodded solemnly. "My mission: protect the data, prevent galactic domination." The weight of their situation pressed down on them. In the dim light of the bunker, surrounded by relics of a past war, they found themselves on the front lines of a new, unimaginable conflict. As the reality of their circumstances sank in, Patrick and Xena's gazes met. The stress of their ordeal, the shared dangers they'd faced, and the growing trust between them created an undeniable connection. Without a word, they moved closer, drawn together by forces beyond their control. Their lips met, an unexpected moment of intimacy amidst the chaos. The kiss was brief but intense, a physical manifestation of their unspoken bond. As they parted, both seemed slightly dazed by what had transpired. Before either could speak, the radio crackled loudly, breaking the moment. A frantic voice cut through the static. "All units converge on the alien crash site immediately. Vrak's forces inbound." Patrick snapped to attention, the soldier in him taking over. "We need to move. Now." They quickly gathered supplies, arming themselves with what weapons they could carry. As they prepared to leave the bunker, Patrick's eyes fell on an old tarp-covered shape in the corner. Pulling it aside, he revealed a rusted but intact off-road vehicle. "Our ticket out of here," he said, a grim smile on his face. They loaded their gear and climbed aboard, Patrick saying a silent prayer as he turned the key. To their relief, the engine roared to life. They burst out of a concealed vehicle exit, the bunker's door groaning open for the first time in decades. The desert flew by as they raced towards the crash site, dodging Vrak's patrols and navigating treacherous terrain. Patrick's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, every sense on high alert. Beside him, Xena scanned the horizon, her alien senses attuned to dangers Patrick couldn't perceive. As they neared their destination, the sounds of battle filled the air. Cresting a dune, they were met with a scene of chaos. Human military forces clashed with Vrak's warriors, the aliens' advanced technology giving them a clear advantage. Patrick brought the vehicle to a skidding halt behind a rocky outcropping, concealing them from the conflict. He turned to Xena, his face set with commitment. "We need a plan to get past both sides and reach your ship," he said. Xena's markings pulsed rapidly as she considered their options. I can guide us through Chalna security measures, she said. But we'll need your combat skills to get us there. Patrick nodded, his mind already formulating a strategy. He scanned the battlefield, noting vulnerabilities in both human and Vrax positions. With a deep breath, he turned to Xena. "Ready?" he asked. Her large eyes met his, reflecting a mix of fear and commitment. She nodded. They burst from their cover, Patrick leading the way. Using the battle as cover, they wove through the chaos, Patrick's training allowing them to slip past both human and alien forces. Explosions rocked the ground around them as they sprinted towards the crashed Chalna ship. As they approached the vessel, a massive figure suddenly blocked their path. A Vrax commander, its armored form towering over them, let out a bone-chilling roar. "Go!" Patrick yelled to Xena. "Get the data. I'll hold him off." As Xena raced towards her ship, Patrick squared off against the alien warrior. The Vrax charged, its strength far beyond human limits. Patrick ducked and weaved, using his agility to avoid the crushing blows. Inside the ship, Xena's fingers flew over the controls, desperately trying to access the crucial data. Outside, the sounds of Patrick's struggle with the Vrax commander grew more intense. The battle raged around them as Patrick fought for his life. Xena raced against time, and reinforcements from both sides closed in. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, with only this unlikely pair standing between the Vrax and total galactic domination. With only this unlikely pair standing between the Vrax and total galactic conquest. Patrick's muscles burned as he dodged another devastating blow from the Vrax commander. The alien's massive fist whistled past his ear, missing by mere inches. Sweat stung his eyes, but he blinked it away, refusing to lose focus for even a moment. Years of Special Forces training kicked in. Patrick analyzed his opponent's movements, searching for weaknesses. The Vrax was incredibly strong, but also slow and predictable. He waited for his opening. It came when the alien overextended on a lunging punch. Patrick ducked under the swing and stepped inside the Vrax's guard. He delivered a flurry of precise strikes to vulnerable points on the alien's body, joints, nerve clusters, and sensory organs that his training with Xena had revealed. The Vrax commander staggered, momentarily stunned. Patrick seized the advantage, grabbing the alien's arm and using its own momentum to throw it off balance. With a resounding crash, the massive figure hit the ground. Before it could recover, Patrick pounced. He wrenched the Vrax's arm behind its back, applying pressure to a cluster of nerve endings. The alien let out a guttural roar of pain before finally going limp. Panting heavily, Patrick scanned the battlefield. The sounds of combat still raged around them, but his immediate area was clear. He sprinted toward Xena's crashed ship. Inside the vessel, Xena's fingers flew across holographic interfaces. Alien symbols scrolled past at dizzying speeds. Finally, a triumphant chirp emanated from her translator. "Got it!" she exclaimed as Patrick entered the ship. She held up a small, crystalline device pulsing with an inner light. "All the data, right here." Patrick nodded, already assessing their next move. "We need to get out of here, fast. Any ideas?" Xena's large eyes swiveled, taking in their surroundings. They widened as she spotted something in the distance. There, Vrax scout ship, similar design to Chalna vessels. "I can fly it." They burst from the crashed ship, keeping low as they sprinted towards their target. Explosions rocked the ground, and energy weapons crisscrossed the air above them. They reached the scout ship just as a squad of human soldiers breached the perimeter of the crash site. "Hurry!" Patrick urged as Xena interfaced with the ship's security systems. The hatch slid open with a hiss, and they scrambled inside. Patrick slid into the pilot's seat, his hands hovering uncertainly over the alien controls. Xena leaned over him, her breath warm on his neck as she guided his fingers to the correct interfaces. "Like this," she said, initiating the launch sequence. The ship hummed to life around them. Outside, the human soldiers had noticed their activity. Bullets pinged off the ship's hull as Patrick eased it off the ground. The impacts were barely noticeable thanks to the advanced shielding, but the commotion drew the attention of several Vrax fighters. "Hang on," Patrick called as he pushed the throttle forward. The scout ship shot into the sky, leaving a trail of superheated air in its wake. Xena moved to the weapons station, her bioluminescent markings pulsing rapidly as she interfaced with the systems. Multiple hostiles on approach, both Vrax and human. Patrick's hands danced across the controls, the ship responding to his touch with increasing fluidity. He barrel-rolled to avoid a barrage of energy blasts from pursuing Vrax ships, then dove sharply to evade a missile launch by a human fighter jet that had joined the chase. "Nice flying," Xena commented, her translator conveying a mix of surprise and admiration. She returned fire, forcing their pursuers to break formation. As they climbed higher into the atmosphere, a new threat appeared on their sensors. A human military helicopter, jam-packed with weapons, moved to intercept them. "They're trying to force us down," Patrick growled, his eyes narrowing as he formulated a plan. "Xena, can you disable their weapons without destroying the chopper?" Xena's markings flashed in confirmation. A precise burst of energy lanced out from their ship, shorting out the helicopter's electrical systems. It began to spin, but Patrick saw the pilot regain control and begin an emergency landing. With a final burst of acceleration, they broke through the atmosphere and into the inky blackness of space. For a moment, everything was silent and still. Then Patrick's breath caught in his throat as he beheld the sight before them. The Vrax invasion fleet hung in low Earth orbit, an armada of massive warships that blotted out the stars. Their weapons glowed with impossibly strong energy, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. "Now what?" Patrick asked, his voice tight with tension. Xena's eyes darted across the sensor readings. "There," she pointed to a section of space cluttered with debris. "Destroyed satellites and space junk. We can use it for cover." Patrick nodded, guiding their ship towards the field of wreckage. As they wove through the dangerous obstacle course, Xena began working on the data they'd retrieved. "This is unexpected," she said after a few moments. "The artifact isn't a weapon. It's a device capable of neutralizing advanced energy systems." Patrick's mind raced with the implications. "You mean we could potentially shut down the entire Vrax fleet?" Before Xena could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A massive energy signature had locked onto their position. From behind Earth's moon, a colossal Vrax battlecruiser emerged. A harsh voice crackled over their communications system. "Attention, renegade vessel. This is Admiral Cross of the Vrax Empire. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Patrick and Xena exchanged looks of perseverance. They were trapped between the approaching battlecruiser and the debris field, with Earth's mobilizing defenses behind them. The next few moments would determine not only their fate, but potentially that of the entire planet. Patrick's mind whirled with possibilities. His gaze fell on a control panel Xena had mentioned earlier. "The cloaking technology," he said, a plan forming. "Can we use it to slip past the fleet and get back to Earth?" Xena's markings pulsed with excitement. "Yes, if we can deliver this information to your authorities." "We might just have a chance," Patrick finished. As Xena began the cloaking sequence, the stress and adrenaline of their situation came crashing down on them. Their eyes met, and without a word, they came together in a passionate embrace. The kiss was electric, a culmination of the trust and connection that had grown between them. The moment was shattered by the blaring of proximity alarms. Vrax boarding parties were closing in fast. Patrick pulled away, his expression a mix of regret and commitment. Looks like we'll have to postpone this discussion, he said, turning back to the controls. Xena nodded, her markings glowing with a mix of emotions. Indeed, we have a planet to save. As they prepared to activate the cloak and run the gauntlet of enemy forces, both human and alien, Patrick allowed himself a small smile. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they'd face them together. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and their unlikely partnership might just be its salvation. Salvation. As Patrick's fingers hovered over the cloaking controls, ready to execute their daring plan, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the ship. Sparks erupted from the control panel, and the lights flickered ominously. "No!" Xena cried, her markings flashing with alarm. "The cloaking device is malfunctioning." Patrick's heart raced as he watched their only means of escape fizzle out before his eyes. On the display, the massive Vrax battlecruiser loomed ever closer, its boarding parties closing in rapidly. "We're exposed," he said, his mind already formulating a new plan. "Hang on." Without hesitation, Patrick yanked the controls, sending the scout ship into a steep dive back towards Earth's atmosphere. The ship shuddered as it plunged through layers of space debris, narrowly avoiding collisions with defunct satellites and discarded rocket stages. "What are you doing?" Xena asked, her large eyes wide with a mix of fear and trust. "Getting us out of here," Patrick replied, his eyebrows furrowed. "We'll lose them in the cloud cover." As they hit the upper atmosphere, the ship began to glow red-hot. Alarms blared, warning of the immense stress on the hull. Patrick's muscles strained as he fought to keep control, the stick vibrating violently in his hands. Xena's fingers danced across the ship systems, rerouting power to the shields. "I'm reinforcing our defenses," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "But I don't know how long they'll hold." The scout ship shook violently as they plummeted through the atmosphere. Outside the viewports, the black of space gave way to the angry reds and oranges of reentry. Sweat beaded on Patrick's forehead as he navigated through swirling air currents and crackling electrical storms. Suddenly, they burst through the cloud layer. The vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretched out below them, a deep blue canvas dotted with white-capped waves. But their moment of relief was short-lived. A series of energy blasts streaked past the ship, barely missing them. "Vrax fighters!" Xena called out, her markings pulsing rapidly as she monitored the sensors. "At least 3 of them." Patrick's eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any refuge. In the distance, he spotted a small landmass rising from the ocean. "There!" he shouted. "That island! It's our best shot." He pushed the engines to their limits, skimming low over the water's surface. The Vrax fighters followed close behind, their energy weapons carving glowing trails through the air. Patrick weaved and rolled, using every evasive maneuver he knew to shake their pursuers. As they approached the island, Patrick saw its rugged terrain, a mix of dense jungle and rocky outcroppings. He grinned, a plan forming in his mind. "Hold on tight," he warned Xena. "This is going to get rough." Patrick pulled the ship into a steep climb, then cut the engines. For a heart-stopping moment, they hung suspended in the air. Then, gravity took hold, and they plummeted towards the island's interior. The Vrax fighters, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver, overshot their position. By the time they turned to re-engage, Patrick had guided the scout ship into a narrow ravine, using the island's natural features as cover. But their escape came at a cost. The strain of the atmospheric entry and the violent maneuvers had taken their toll on the ship. As they emerged from the ravine into a small clearing, multiple systems failed simultaneously. "We're losing power," Xena shouted, her markings flashing urgently. "We can't stay airborne." Patrick fought the controls, trying to level their descent. "Brace for impact." The scout ship plowed into the dense jungle, carving a path of destruction through the vegetation. It came to a grinding halt against the trunk of a massive tree, the hull groaning in protest. For a moment, everything was silent except for the hiss of ruptured coolant lines and the crackle of small electrical fires. Patrick shook his head, clearing the fog of the impact. He turned to Xena, relieved to see her already unbuckling her harness. "We need to move," he said, forcing the damage hatch open. "This ship's not going to last long." They scrambled out of the wreckage, Xena clutching the precious data device to her chest. As they stumbled away from the crash site, the scout ship erupted into flames behind them. Patrick led the way into the thick jungle, his military training kicking in as he searched for a defensible position. They moved as quickly as they could through the dense underbrush, the sounds of their pursuers growing more distant. After what felt like hours of trekking, Patrick held up a hand, signaling Xena to stop. He crouched down, examining a patch of disturbed earth. "What is it?" Xena asked, her translator struggling to convey her whispered tone. Patrick's brow furrowed as he studied the ground. "These are footprints," he said. "Human footprints." Xena's markings pulsed with surprise. "But I thought this island was uninhabited." "So did I," Patrick replied, his eyes scanning their surroundings with renewed caution. "But it looks like we're not alone here." As they pushed deeper into the jungle, more signs of human activity became apparent. They found a discarded energy bar wrapper, then a length of high-tech cabling strung between trees. "This isn't just some castaways," Patrick muttered. "This is organized, professional." They crested a small rise, and suddenly, the jungle gave way to a large clearing. In the center stood a complex of sleek, modern buildings, their surfaces designed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding vegetation. Patrick and Xena exchanged a look of surprise and hope. Whatever this facility was, it represented their best chance of survival and completing their mission. As they cautiously approached the compound, a figure emerged from one of the buildings. A woman in a lab coat strode towards them, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "I'm Dr. Elena Rossi," she called out as she neared them. "And you two look like you could use some help." Patrick tensed, ready for any potential threat, but something in the woman's demeanor put him at ease. He nodded, gesturing to himself and Xena. "I'm Patrick, and this is Xena," he said. "And you're right. We need help. Not just for us, but for the entire planet." Dr. Rossi's eyes widened as she took in Xena's alien features and the obvious signs of their recent ordeal. She nodded firmly, her posture straightening with a sense of purpose. "Then you'd better come inside," she said, turning back towards the facility. "It seems we have a lot to discuss." As they followed Dr. Rossi into the compound, Patrick felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They had found an unexpected ally, but the Vraks were still out there, searching for them. And time was running out for Earth. The doors of the facility slid shut behind them, sealing them off from the dangers of the jungle. But as Patrick looked at Xena, the weight of the data device in her hands, he knew their greatest challenges still lay ahead. As Patrick and Xena followed Dr. Rossi into the compound, the gravity of their situation began to sink in. The facility's sterile corridors were a stark contrast to the lush jungle outside, and the hum of advanced machinery filled the air. Dr. Rossi led them to a secure conference room, where she quickly brought up a holographic display of the island and the surrounding airspace. "We've been monitoring the Vraks' activity," she explained, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Their search patterns are becoming more concentrated. It won't be long before they find us." Patrick leaned forward, studying the display intently. "We need to buy time," he said, his mind already formulating a plan. "If I can draw their attention away from the facility, it might give you a chance to work with the data we brought." Xena's markings pulsed with concern. "That's too dangerous," she protested. "You can't face them alone." "He won't be alone," Dr. Rossi interjected. She pressed a button, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing an arsenal of experimental weapons. We've been developing countermeasures against Vrax technology. They're not perfect, but they should give you an edge. Patrick's eyes lit up as he examined the advanced weaponry. He selected a compact rifle with glowing energy coils and a set of grenades that emitted a faint, pulsing light. As Patrick geared up, Dr. Rossi turned to Xena. Your understanding of Chalna technology could be the key to completing our prototype defense system. Will you help me? Xena nodded, her markings glowing with purpose. Of course. What do you need me to do? The building shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. The distant sound of explosions filtered through the walls. They're getting closer, Patrick said grimly. He checked his weapons one last time and headed for the door. I'll keep them busy as long as I can. You two focus on that defense system. Xena caught his arm as he passed. Their eyes met, 1,000 unspoken words passing between them in an instant. Be careful, she said softly. Patrick gave her a reassuring smile. Always am. With that, he disappeared into the corridor, the sound of his footsteps fading as he made his way to the surface. Dr. Rossi wasted no time. She led Xena to a nearby laboratory where a complex array of equipment surrounded a central device that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. This is our prototype, Dr. Rossi explained. It's designed to create a field that neutralizes Vrax energy weapons, but we've been having stability issues with the Matrix. Xena examined the device closely, her unique understanding of Chalna technology allowing her to see connections that others might miss. I think I see the problem, she said, her markings flashing with excitement. If we recalibrate the phase harmonics and adjust the quantum resonance, we might be able to stabilize the field. As they worked, the sounds of battle grew louder outside. Explosions rocked the facility, and alarms blared warning of imminent breach. Meanwhile, Patrick moved through the dense jungle with practiced stealth. He could hear the Vrax search parties crashing through the underbrush, their energy weapons discharging at shadows and movement. Using the experimental weapons, Patrick set up a series of ambushes. He disabled several Vrax fighters with well-placed shots from his energy rifle, the weapon's unique frequency bypassing their shields. The pulsing grenades proved equally effective, creating localized disruption fields that scrambled Vrax communications and sensors. But the Vrax were adapting quickly. Their superior numbers began to overwhelm Patrick's guerrilla tactics. As he fell back towards a rocky outcropping, a massive figure emerged from the jungle. Admiral Kraz, his armor gleaming in the dappled sunlight, leveled a massive energy cannon at Patrick. Enough games, human, Kraz growled. Surrender now, and I may yet spare your pitiful planet. Patrick's response was a barrage of weapons fire that forced Kraz to take cover. The jungle erupted into chaos as the two warriors engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Back in the facility, Xena and Dr. Rossi were making progress. Xena's insights had allowed them to stabilize the energy matrix, and the prototype was humming with power. It's working, Dr. Rossi exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. We just need to expand the field and dash. Her words were cut off by a deafening explosion. The laboratory door blew inward, and through the smoke strode a group of Vrax soldiers led by a scarred warrior with cold, calculating eyes. I am Sub-Commander Vex, the leader announced, his voice a metallic rasp. And you will surrender that device immediately. Dr. Rossi moved to protect the prototype, but a blast from Vex's weapon caught her in the shoulder, spinning her to the ground. Xena's markings flashed with anger and fear. She positioned herself between the fallen scientist and the advancing Vrax, her body tense for combat. As Vex raised his weapon again, Xena sprang into action, her Chalna combat training taking over. She moved within human speed, closing the distance before Vex could fire. Her fist connected with his jaw, sending him staggering backward. The other Vrax soldiers joined the fray, but in the confined space of the laboratory, Xena's agility gave her an advantage. She ducked and weaved, using the Vrax's size and bulk against them. Equipment crashed to the floor as the battle raged, sparks flying from damaged consoles. Xena managed to disarm one soldier and used his weapon against his comrades, her markings pulsing with the intensity of the fight. Outside, Patrick was running out of options. Admiral Cross and his elite guard had him pinned down, their energy weapons chipping away at his cover. In a desperate move, Patrick activated all of his remaining experimental weapons simultaneously. The resulting electromagnetic pulse washed over the battlefield like a tidal wave. Vrax's weapons sputtered and died, their advanced technology rendered useless. Seizing the moment, Patrick broke from cover and sprinted towards the facility. As he burst through the entrance, he heard the sounds of combat echoing from the laboratory. He arrived just in time to see Xena locked in fierce hand-to-hand combat with Subcommander Vex. Without hesitation, Patrick joined the fray. Together, he and Xena fought back-to-back, their movements in perfect sync as they faced down the Vrax intruders. With a final, powerful strike, Vex crumpled to the ground and the remaining Vrax soldiers retreated. Panting heavily, Patrick and Xena turned to check on Dr. Rossi. The scientist was already pulling herself to her feet, clutching her wounded shoulder. "The prototype," she gasped. "We need to activate it now." Xena rushed to the device, her fingers flying over the controls. With a low hum, the prototype came to life, projecting a shimmering field that expanded rapidly. "It's working," Xena breathed. "All Vrax energy weapons within 500 meters should be neutralized." Dr. Rossi nodded grimly. "But it won't be enough. We need to get this data to Earth's defense forces." She limped to a nearby console and began typing furiously. "I'm uploading the schematics and data to a secure global network. Even if we don't make it, Earth will have a fighting chance." Suddenly, the building shook violently. Admiral Cross's voice boomed through the facility's communication system. "This is your final warning. Surrender now or be obliterated." Dr. Rossi's eyes lit up with a desperate idea. "The teleporter," she said. "It's our only chance." She led Patrick and Xena to an adjacent room where a massive circular platform dominated the center. As Dr. Rossi worked the controls, the air above the platform began to shimmer and crackle with energy. "It's experimental," she explained. "Designed as an evacuation method. It should get you and the prototype to a secure Earth facility." Patrick looked at her in shock. "What about you?" Dr. Rossi smiled sadly. "Someone has to stay behind to operate it and destroy the controls. We can't risk the Vrax following." Before they could protest, another explosion rocked the facility. Alarms blared, warning of multiple breaches. "Go!" Dr. Rossi shouted, pushing them towards the platform. "Earth is counting on you." With heavy hearts, Patrick and Xena stepped onto the teleporter. The prototype clutched tightly in Xena's arms. As the energy field enveloped them, they saw Admiral Cross and his forces burst into the control room. The last image they saw before the blinding light consumed them was Dr. Rossi's defiant smile as she smashed the teleporter controls. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and sensation. When reality reasserted itself, Patrick and Xena found themselves in a stark, metal-walled room. As their vision cleared, they realized they were surrounded by figures in advanced combat suits, weapons trained on them. A stern voice cut through their disorientation. "Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Now." Patrick and Xena exchanged a look of relief and apprehension. They had made it to an Earth defense facility, but their ordeal was far from finished. As Patrick opened his mouth to speak, he knew that convincing these unknown defenders of their mission's importance would be their next great challenge. Challenge As Patrick opened his mouth to speak, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "Stand down. They're friendlies." General Marcus Steele strode into the room, his weathered face a mask of commitment. The soldiers immediately lowered their weapons, and Patrick felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Sir," Patrick said, snapping to attention. "Captain Patrick Reeves, reporting with critical intel and technology." General Steele nodded, his eyes darting to Xena and the prototype device. "Follow me. We don't have much time." As they walked briskly through the underground facility, Patrick took in the bustling activity around them. Technicians huddled over glowing screens, and soldiers rushed to and fro with purposeful urgency. "Welcome to the Extraterrestrial Defense Initiative," Steele explained as they entered a secure briefing room. "We've been expecting you, though I admit your method of arrival was unexpected." A woman in a lab coat looked up from a holographic display, her eyes widening at the sight of the prototype. "Is that what I think it is?" General Steele made quick introductions. "Dr. Samantha Baker, our lead scientist. Dr. Baker, meet Captain Reeves and... I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." "Xena," she replied, her markings pulsing softly. "I'm Chalnath." Dr. Baker's excitement was palpable as she approached. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the device. Xena carefully handed it over, and Dr. Baker immediately began examining it, her fingers dancing over its surface. "This is incredible," she murmured. "The energy matrix. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Patrick cleared his throat. "We have more than just a prototype. We've brought detailed schematics and data on Vrax's technology." Dr. Baker's head snapped up, her eyes shining with renewed vigor. "Let's see it." As Patrick and Xena recounted their journey, providing every scrap of intelligence they had gathered, Dr. Baker and her team pored over the data. The room hummed with activity, screens flickering with complex equations and diagrams. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility. General Steele rushed to a nearby console, his face grim as he read the incoming data. "We've got incoming," he announced. A massive Vrax fleet just entered Earth orbit. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over everyone. Then, Steele sprang into action. "Baker, how soon can we have functional prototypes ready for deployment?" Dr. Baker's brow furrowed in concentration. "With this data, 12 hours, maybe less if we push it." Steele nodded. "Make it happen. Reeves, you're with me. We need to prep you for a special ops mission." As they left the room, Patrick caught Xena's eye. She nodded, understanding passing between them without words. They both knew what was at stake. The next hours were a blur of activity. Patrick underwent an intensive crash course in operating the new weaponry, his muscles aching from the constant drills. In between training sessions, he caught glimpses of Xena working alongside Dr. Baker, her unique insights proving invaluable in fine-tuning the prototype. During a brief respite, Patrick found Xena in a quiet corner of the facility. They sat together in comfortable silence, the weight of their shared experiences hanging between them. "I never thought I'd find myself fighting for a planet that isn't mine," Xena said softly, her markings pulsing with a mix of emotions. Patrick reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing his hand on hers. "Earth may not be your home, but you've become a part of its story now." Their moment of peace was shattered by the facility-wide alarm system. General Steele's voice boomed over the intercom. "All personnel battle stations. Vrax forces have begun their assault on major cities. Special Ops Team, report for immediate deployment." Patrick and Xena exchanged a look of unyielding commitment before rushing to the deployment area. They found General Steele overseeing the final preparations, his face etched with the gravity of the situation. "Listen up," Steele barked as Patrick's team assembled. "The Vrax have hit New York City hard. Your mission is to get in, activate the prototype device, and disable their energy weapons. The fate of Earth rests on your success. As they boarded the stealth transport, Patrick felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He looked at his team. 5 of Earth's finest soldiers, and Xena, an alien who had become an invaluable ally and friend. The transport's bay doors opened, revealing the chaos that had engulfed New York City. Vrak's warships loomed overhead, their energy weapons carving swaths of destruction through the once bustling metropolis. Smoke billowed from shattered skyscrapers, and the air crackled with the sound of alien weaponry. "Remember your training," Patrick called out as they disembarked. "Stay low, move fast, and watch each other's backs." Using Xena's knowledge of Vrak's tactics, they navigated through the ruins of the city, avoiding detection as they approached the imposing silhouette of the Vrak's command ship. The prototype devices, strapped securely to their backs, hummed with potential energy. As they rounded a corner, Patrick raised his fist, signaling the team to halt. Ahead, a squad of Vrak's soldiers patrolled the street, led by a familiar scarred warrior. "Subcommander Vex," Xena whispered, her markings flashing with recognition. Patrick's mind raced, formulating a plan. But before he could give the order, Vex had snapped in their direction. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Then, chaos erupted. Energy weapons flared to life, filling the air with deadly beams of light. Patrick's team scattered, taking cover behind the burnt-out husks of vehicles and crumbling walls. The prototype weapons proved their worth, punching through Vrak's energy shields and sending the alien warriors reeling. In the midst of the firefight, Patrick saw one of his teammates go down, clutching his side. Without hesitation, Xena darted from cover, her hands already reaching for her medical kit. "Cover her!" Patrick shouted, laying down suppressing fire as Xena worked to save the fallen soldier. As the battle raged around them, Patrick locked eyes with Subcommander Vex. The Vrak's warriors' face twisted into a snarl of recognition and hatred. With a roar that cut through the din of combat, Vex charged directly at Patrick, energy blade humming to life. Patrick barely had time to raise his weapon before Vex was upon him. The Vrak subcommander's superior strength sent Patrick's gun clattering across the rubble-strewn ground. In an instant, the fight devolved into a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Vex's energy blade sliced through the air, missing Patrick's face by mere inches. Patrick retaliated with a series of quick jabs, targeting the weak points in Vrak's armor that Xena had taught him. But Vex was a seasoned warrior, and every small advantage Patrick gained was quickly countered. As they grappled, Patrick caught sight of his team pushing forward towards the Vrak's command ship. He knew he had to end this fight quickly if they were to have any chance of success. Summoning every ounce of strength and skill he possessed, Patrick feinted left, then dropped low, sweeping Vex's legs out from under him. The Vrak's subcommander crashed to the ground, momentarily stunned. Patrick seized the opportunity, delivering a powerful strike to Vex's helmet, cracking the visor. But Vex was far from defeated. With a roar of rage, he surged upward, catching Patrick in a vice-like grip. As they struggled, Patrick could see the Vrak's command ship looming ever closer, and he knew that time was running out. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as Patrick fought to break free from Vex's grasp and rejoin his team. The final push to activate the prototype device lay ahead, and failure was not an option. With the sounds of battle echoing around them and the shadow of the Vrak's command ship growing larger, Patrick steeled himself for what promised to be the fight of his life. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Patrick twisted his body, using Vex's momentum against him. The Vrak's subcommander stumbled, his grip loosening just enough for Patrick to break free. In that split second, Patrick's Special Forces training took over. He unleashed a flurry of precise strikes, targeting the weak points in Vex's armor that Xena had revealed. Each blow landed with devastating effect, the alien's body jerking from the impact. Vex retaliated, his energy blade humming dangerously close to Patrick's face. But Patrick was ready. He ducked under the swing, feeling the heat of the weapon above his head. As he came up, he drove his elbow into Vex's midsection with all his might. The Vrax subcommander doubled over, wheezing. Patrick seized the opportunity, delivering a powerful uppercut that sent Vex's helmet flying. With his opponent stunned, Patrick followed through with a final, decisive blow to the alien's exposed head. Vex crumpled to the ground unconscious. Panting heavily, Patrick quickly scanned the battlefield. His team had made significant progress towards the Vrax command ship, their prototype weapons cutting through the alien defenses with devastating efficiency. Without wasting another moment, he sprinted to rejoin them. As Patrick approached, Xena's head snapped in his direction. Her markings pulsed with a mix of relief and concern. She moved to cover him, her prototype weapon blazing a path through the Vrax forces. "Glad you could join us, Captain," Sergeant Rodriguez called out, a grin visible beneath his helmet visor. Patrick nodded, immediately falling into formation with his team. "What's our status?" "We're making good progress," Xena reported, her eyes never leaving the incoming Vrax soldiers. "But the command ship's defenses are intensifying." As if to punctuate her words, a barrage of energy blasts rained down from the looming ship above. The team scattered, taking cover behind the twisted wreckage of vehicles and buildings. Patrick peered around his cover, assessing the situation. The Vrax command ship towered above them, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. "We need to get up there," he said, pointing to an access hatch high on the ship's side. Rodriguez pulled out a set of advanced climbing gear. "Already on it, sir." The team began their ascent, magnetic clamps allowing them to scale the smooth surface of the alien vessel. As they climbed, the ship's automated defense system sprang to life. Deadly energy beams crisscrossed the hull, forcing the team to time their movements carefully. Suddenly, a piece of debris struck Rodriguez's arm. The sergeant let out a cry of pain, his grip faltering. Patrick watched in horror as Rodriguez began to fall. In a blur of motion, Xena leapt across the hull. Her live form seemed to defy gravity as she snatched Rodriguez's arm, arresting his fall. With incredible strength, she pulled him back to safety. "Thanks," Rodriguez gasped, his face pale beneath his helmet. Xena's markings pulsed with a warm glow. "We look after our own," she said simply. They reached the access hatch, only to find it sealed with an intricate locking mechanism. Patrick tapped his comm unit. "Dr. Baker, we've reached the entry point, but it's locked down tight. Any ideas?" "I'm analyzing it now." Baker's voice crackled through the comm. "This is advanced stuff. It could take hours to hack." Patrick's heart sank. They didn't have hours. Every moment they delayed meant more destruction on the surface below. Xena's eyes lit up. "Wait," she said, her markings pulsing with excitement. "I have an idea." She quickly explained her plan to use the prototype device in conjunction with a controlled energy surge to overload the locking system. It was risky, but they were out of options. Patrick nodded his approval, and they set to work. As Xena and Patrick carefully positioned the prototype device, the rest of the team provided covering fire against the waves of Vrax reinforcements that had begun to swarm up the hull. The air crackled with energy as Xena made the final adjustments. Patrick held his breath, acutely aware of the battle raging around them and the precious seconds ticking away. With a sudden burst of light and a high-pitched whine, the lock mechanism overloaded. Sparks flew as the hatch hissed open, revealing the ship's dark interior. "We're in," Patrick announced, relief evident in his voice. "Let's move." The team entered the Vrax command ship, finding themselves in a vast, alien corridor. Strange, organic-looking technology lined the walls, pulsing with an eerie energy that made Patrick's skin crawl. As they moved deeper into the ship, They encountered various alien species, clearly enslaved by the Vrax. These beings scurried about, performing menial tasks under the watchful eyes of Vrax overseers. Xena's knowledge of Vrax ship design proved invaluable as she guided them towards the central power core. But as they entered a massive chamber, Patrick stopped short, his eyes widening in disbelief. Before them stood rows upon rows of stasis pods, each containing a human figure suspended in a ghostly blue light. "By all that's holy!" Rodriguez whispered, his voice filled with horror and awe. Xena's markings pulsed with a mix of emotions. "Containment units," she explained, her voice tight. "For captured humans. But why? What could the Vrax want with so many prisoners?" Patrick's mind raced. Their mission was clear. Reach the power core and activate the prototype device to disable the Vrax fleet. But now, faced with thousands of captured humans, could they simply leave them behind? Before he could voice his thoughts, the ship's internal alarms blared to life. Admiral Kraw's voice, filled with malicious glee, echoed through the chamber. "Intruders detected," the Vrax leader announced. "All escape routes are now sealed. Prepare to meet your doom at the hands of my elite guard." Patrick's team instinctively formed a defensive perimeter, their weapons at the ready. They were trapped in the stasis pod chamber, with Vrax forces converging on their position from multiple directions. As the sound of approaching Vrax troops grew louder, Patrick locked eyes with Xena. In that moment of silent communication, he saw unwavering support and trust in her alien features. Whatever plan he devised, he knew she would be by his side. Patrick took a deep breath, his mind working furiously to formulate a strategy that could salvage their mission, save the human captives, and get his team out alive. As the first of Kraw's elite guards burst into the chamber, Patrick knew that his next decision would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of all humanity. Humanity. In that moment, Patrick made his decision. "Rodriguez, take Johnson and Lee. Start freeing those prisoners," Patrick ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Xena, Matthews, you're with me. We're pushing to the power core." Rodriguez nodded, understanding the weight of their new objective. "Yes, sir, good luck." As Rodriguez's team broke off towards the stasis pods, Patrick led Xena and Matthews deeper into the ship. The corridors twisted and turned, alien architecture making navigation a challenge. But Xena's knowledge proved invaluable, her markings pulsing as she guided them through the labyrinth. "This way," she said, gesturing towards a narrow passageway. "It should lead us directly to the power core chamber." They pressed forward, their prototype weapons cutting through wave after wave of Vrax defenders. Patrick found himself working in perfect sync with Xena, their movements complementing each other as if they'd trained together for years. When a Vrax soldier lunged at Patrick from a hidden alcove, Xena was there in an instant, her weapon flaring to life and dropping the alien before it could strike. Back in the stasis pod chamber, Rodriguez and his team worked feverishly to free the human captives. As Johnson covered their position, Rodriguez examined the central control system. "Sir," he called over the comm, "these pods are all linked. If we can hack the main system, we might be able to release them all at once." Patrick's voice crackled through the comm. "Do it. Use the prototypes if you have to." Rodriguez didn't hesitate. He connected their prototype device to the alien console, its advanced technology interfacing with the Vrax systems. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a series of clicks and hisses, the stasis pods began to open. Thousands of humans emerged, disoriented but alive. Lee quickly began organizing the freed prisoners, guiding them towards the ship's escape pods. As Patrick's team neared the power core, Admiral Kraw's voice boomed through the ship's communication systems. "You may have breached my vessel, humans, but you will not leave it alive. I have activated the self-destruct sequence. Your victory will be your tomb." Patrick, exchanged a grim look with Xena. "We need to move faster." They redoubled their pace, fighting through the intensifying Vrax resistance. As they entered the massive chamber housing the power core, Patrick's breath caught in his throat. The room was a marvel of alien engineering, with pulsating energy conduits and swirling vortexes of exotic matter. At the center stood a colossal pillar of light, the ship's main reactor. As they approached the reactor, a hidden door slid open. Admiral Cross stepped out, his imposing figure encased in battle armor. "So, you are the one who dares to challenge the might of the Vrax," Cross growled, his eyes fixed on Patrick. "I offer you a warrior's death. Face me in single combat, human. Prove your worth before you die." Patrick knew every second counted, but he also recognized the opportunity this presented. He turned to Xena, handing her the prototype device. "Get this connected to the power core. I'll keep him busy." Xena's markings flashed with concern, but she nodded, understanding the plan. Patrick stepped forward, facing the Vrax Admiral. "I accept your challenge." With a roar, Cross charged. Patrick barely had time to dodge the first blow, feeling the wind from the alien's massive fist as it whistled past his head. He retaliated with a series of quick strikes, targeting the weak points in Vrax armor that Xena had taught him. As Patrick and Cross battled across the chamber, Xena worked furiously to integrate the prototype device with the ship systems. Her fingers flew across the alien controls, her knowledge of both Chalnith and Vrax technology allowing her to navigate the complex interfaces. Matthews provided covering fire, holding off Vrax reinforcements attempting to breach the chamber. "Hurry!" he shouted, his weapon blazing. "We've got more incoming." The fight between Patrick and Cross intensified. The Vrax Admiral's strength was incredible, but Patrick's agility and adaptability kept him in the fight. They moved in a deadly dance around the chamber, narrowly avoiding crackling energy discharges from the failing systems. Patrick's muscles screamed with exertion as he blocked another of Cross's powerful blows. He knew he couldn't match the alien's strength directly. Instead, he waited for his moment, letting Cross's overconfidence grow with each attack. That moment came when Cross overextended himself, putting too much force into a strike. Patrick ducked under the blow and unleashed a flurry of precise hits. The Vrax Admiral stumbled, off balance for just an instant. It was all Patrick needed. With a final, powerful kick, Patrick sent Cross tumbling into a cluster of power conduits. The impact caused a cascading energy surge, temporarily stunning the Vrax leader. Patrick rushed to Xena's side, helping her make the final connections. As they worked together, their hands touched, and a moment of intense connection passed between them. Despite the chaos around them, time seemed to slow as they shared a look of mutual understanding and deepening emotions. With a final push, Xena activated the device. A pulse of energy erupted from the power core, spreading rapidly throughout the ship and beyond. The chamber's lights flickered, and the hum of Vrax technology began to falter. "It's working," Matthews called out, watching as the Vrax weapons attacking him suddenly powered down. Patrick's comm unit crackled to life. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice came through, "the Vrax ship's out here. Their weapons are going dark. Shields too. Whatever you did, it's affecting the whole fleet." A surge of triumph ran through Patrick, but he knew they weren't out of danger yet. The ship's self-destruct sequence was still counting down, and they had thousands of freed prisoners to evacuate. "Everyone move," Patrick ordered. "We need to get to the escape pods before this whole place goes up." As they ran from the chamber, Patrick cast one last look at the stunned form of Admiral Cross. For a moment, he considered trying to take the Vrax leader prisoner. But with time running out, he knew they couldn't risk it. The team raced through the corridors, the ship's alarms blaring around them. They reunited with Rodriguez's group, now shepherding a mass of confused and frightened human prisoners. "This way," Xena called out. leading them towards the ship's auxiliary docking bays. There should be enough escape pods to get everyone out. As they ran, Patrick found himself running side by side with Xena. In the midst of the chaos, he felt a growing certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The first escape pods came into view, offering a glimpse of hope. But as the freed prisoners began to board, a new alarm sounded. The self-destruct sequence had entered its final stage. With time running out and not everyone evacuated, Patrick knew the most difficult part of their mission was still to come. Calmly, with the clock ticking down, Patrick made a snap decision. "Change of plans," he announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We're heading for the hangar bay. There should be shuttles we can use to evacuate everyone." Xena nodded, her markings pulsing with understanding. "Good thinking. I can guide us there." Patrick quickly divided the group. "Xena, take Matthews and half the freed captives. I'll lead the rest with Rodriguez. We'll cover more ground this way." As they split up, Patrick felt a moment of hesitation at leaving Xena's side. But there was no time for sentiment. He pushed the feeling aside and focused on the task at hand. Patrick's group moved swiftly through the failing ship, the prototype device's effects evident in the flickering lights and malfunctioning systems. Freed captives stumbled along, some barely able to walk after their time in stasis. Patrick and Rodriguez supported those who struggled, urging them forward. "Contact!" Rodriguez shouted as they rounded a corner. A group of Rack soldiers blocked their path, their energy weapons sputtering and useless. Patrick reacted instantly. He charged forward, ducking under a wild swing from the nearest Vracks. Using the alien's momentum against it, Patrick flipped the soldier over his shoulder, sending it crashing into its comrades. Rodriguez followed suit, engaging another Vrax in hand-to-hand combat. The human's smaller size and agility gave him an advantage in the cramped corridor. He dodged a powerful blow, then countered with a series of quick strikes to the Vrax's vulnerable joints. As they fought, Patrick noticed the freed captives hanging back, fear evident on their faces. He called out to them, "Don't just stand there. Grab anything you can use as a weapon and help us." Inspired by Patrick's words, the captives sprang into action. They tore panels from the walls and grabbed loose pieces of alien technology, using them to batter the Vrax soldiers. The skirmish was brief but intense. When it ended, Patrick's group stood victorious, breathing heavily but unharmed. Patrick allowed himself a moment of pride in their teamwork before urging them onward. Meanwhile, Xena led her group through a different route. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed softly, providing enough light to navigate the darkened corridors. She moved with purpose, her knowledge of Rack's ship design proving invaluable. "Stay close," she instructed the captives. The ship's layout can be disorienting to those unfamiliar with it. As they progressed, Xena found herself supporting a young woman who was struggling to keep up. The human looked at Xena with a mix of fear and curiosity. "You're not like them," the woman said hesitantly. Xena's markings flickered with empathy. "No, I'm not. I'm a Chalneth, and I'm here to help you." The woman nodded, seeming to relax slightly. Xena felt a surge of warmth at this small gesture of trust. Suddenly, a loud creaking echoed through the ship. The floor beneath them shuddered ominously. "The structural integrity is failing," Xena announced. "We need to move faster." As if in response to her words, a maintenance shaft to their left burst open. Xena instinctively moved to defend the group, but stopped short when she saw who emerged. "Dr. Rossi?" Matthews exclaimed in disbelief. The scientist looked disheveled but very much alive. "No time to explain," she said quickly. "I can help get us to the hangar bay faster. Follow me." With Dr. Rossi's assistance, Xena's group made rapid progress. They arrived at the hangar bay just as Patrick's team approached from another entrance. Patrick's eyes widened at the sight of Dr. Rossi, but he quickly refocused on the task at hand. "Status report," he ordered. "Hangar bay secure," Xena replied. "Multiple shuttles available." Patrick nodded. "Dr. Rossi, can you access the control systems?" The scientist was already moving towards a nearby console. "On it," she called back. As Dr. Rossi worked, Patrick and Xena began organizing the evacuation. They quickly learned the basics of the Vrak's shuttle controls, their growing bond allowing them to work in seamless coordination. "Patrick," Xena said softly as they prepared the first shuttle for launch. "Whatever happens next, I'm glad we're facing it together." Patrick met her gaze, a wealth of unspoken emotions passing between them. Before he could respond, an angry roar echoed through the hangar bay. Admiral Cross stumbled into view, his battle armor damaged and sparking. "You will not escape," he bellowed, raising a makeshift weapon. Patrick stepped forward, placing himself between Cross and the others. "It's over, Admiral. Your fleet is disabled, and this ship is about to self-destruct. Let us go, and you can come with us." Cross's eyes widened in surprise. "You would offer me mercy? After all this?" "We know why you came to Earth," Patrick said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Your world is dying. Maybe there's a way we can help each other, but not if we all die here." For a moment, Cross seemed to waver. Then another violent tremor shook the ship, making the decision for him. "Very well," Cross growled. "I accept your offer." As they boarded the final shuttle, Patrick couldn't help but marvel at the strange turn of events. Humans, a Chalnoth, and now a Vrak's admiral, all fleeing together. The hangar bay doors opened, revealing the chaos of the ongoing battle. Patrick took the controls, with Xena at his side. As they launched into space, the Vrak's command ship began to break apart behind them. Patrick gritted his teeth, focusing on navigating through the debris and ongoing combat. Earth loomed ahead, a blue beacon of hope amidst the stars. As they began their descent, Patrick allowed himself a quick glance at Xena. Her markings pulsed with a complex mix of emotions that he was only beginning to understand. He reached out, briefly intertwining his fingers with hers. There would be time later to process everything that had happened, to deal with the aftermath of the invasion and the complexities of their newfound alliance with Cross. For now, Patrick concentrated on bringing them all home safely, acutely aware that their journey was a long way to go. As the shuttles carrying Patrick, Xena, and their unlikely allies descended through Earth's atmosphere, tension gripped the occupants. Patrick's hands tightened on the controls, his eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching military base below. "This is Captain Patrick O'Neill requesting immediate landing clearance," he transmitted, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. "We have freed human captives, friendly aliens, and a Vrak's admiral on board." A crackle of static preceded the response. "Captain O'Neill, this is base control. Confirm your last statement. Did you say a Vrak's admiral?" "Affirmative. Base control. The situation has evolved. We need immediate medical attention for the freed captives." There was a pause, then, "Understood, Captain. You are cleared for landing on Pad 3. Be advised, security forces will be present." As they touched down, Patrick exchanged a glance with Xena. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed with a mix of anticipation and concern. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we face it together." The moment the shuttle doors opened, they were engulfed in a whirlwind of activity. Medical teams rushed forward, triaging the weakened human captives. Simultaneously, armed security personnel surrounded the shuttles, their weapons trained on the alien occupants. Patrick stepped out first, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Stand down," he called out. "They're not hostile." General Marcus Steele strode across the tarmac, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Captain O'Neill, You have exactly 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't order these aliens shot on sight. Patrick took a deep breath. General, the mission was a success. We activated the prototype device, disabled the Vrax fleet, and rescued the captives. But there's more to the story. As Patrick quickly recounted their escape from the Vrax command ship, Xena emerged from the shuttle. Her alien appearance caused a ripple of tension among the soldiers, but Patrick moved protectively to her side. "This is Xena," he said. "Without her, we wouldn't have succeeded. And this," he gestured to the imposing figure of Admiral Kraz, who was now exiting the shuttle, "is Admiral Kraz of the Vrax. He's agreed to cooperate." General Steele's eyes narrowed. "Cooperate? The leader of the invasion force?" Before Patrick could respond, Dr. Elena Rossi pushed her way through the crowd. "General Steele," she interjected, "I can vouch for Captain O'Neill's account. The Vrax technology we've acquired could be the key to solving Earth's environmental and energy crises. We need to establish a dialogue." The general's gaze swept over the assembled group, lingering on Xena and Kraz. After a moment of tense silence, he spoke. "Secure a contained area within the base. I want these aliens under constant surveillance. Captain O'Neill, you'll head up the debriefing team." As they were led into the base, Patrick noticed the curious and sometimes fearful looks directed at Xena. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, earning a few raised eyebrows from nearby soldiers. Over the next few hours, the base transformed into a hive of activity. Patrick and Xena found themselves at the center of it all, fielding questions from military officials, scientists, and intelligence officers. "You'll be sharing quarters," a stern-faced officer informed them, leading them to a secure room. "Given your unique circumstances, it's been deemed necessary to keep you together for continued debriefing." As the door closed behind them, Patrick and Xena finally had a moment alone. The weight of their experiences seemed to settle on them all at once. Without a word, they moved into each other's arms, the simple comfort of touch bridging the gap between their vastly different species. "What happens now?" Xena asked, her markings pulsing softly in the dimly lit room. Patrick ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "We keep working. There's so much to do, helping with the negotiations, assisting Dr. Rossi with her research on the prototype device, figuring out how to integrate Vrax technology with ours." Xena nodded, her alien features set in persistence. "We will face these challenges as we have faced all others together." As they settled into their new routine, the world outside the base reeled from the news of the Vrax fleet's retreat. Patrick and Xena found themselves thrust into the roles of cultural interpreters, bridging the gap between humans and Vrax. Days blurred into weeks. Patrick and Xena worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Rossi, their unique perspectives proving invaluable in unraveling the mysteries of Vrax technology. In stolen moments between debriefings and research sessions, they explored the deepening bond between them, navigating the uncharted territory of their interspecies relationship. However, their closeness did not go unnoticed. Whispers circulated through the base, a mix of curiosity and concern about the nature of their relationship. Some officials voiced worries about potential security risks, while Admiral Kraz watched their interactions with growing unease. One evening, as they pored over schematics in Dr. Rossi's makeshift lab, an urgent message came through. General Steele's face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression grave. "Captain O'Neill, we received intelligence reports of a rogue Vrax faction regrouping in the outer solar system. They're refusing to accept the retreat order. We need to act fast." Patrick straightened, sharing a quick glance with Xena. "What are your orders, sir?" "Assemble your team. We need a plan to neutralize this threat before it jeopardizes our negotiations. And, Captain, keep a close eye on our Vrax guests. We can't afford any surprises." As the screen went dark, Patrick turned to Xena and Dr. Rossi. The weight of their new mission settled over them, a fresh challenge in a landscape already fraught with complexity. "Well," Patrick said, his voice tinged with grim humor, "it looks like our work is a long way to go." Xena's markings pulsed with perseverance. "Then we had better get started." "Better get started," Dr. Rossi finished, her tone resolute. As they began strategizing their approach to the new threat, the base buzzed with activity. The news of the Rogue Vrax faction spread rapidly, creating an atmosphere of tension and urgency. Patrick and Xena found themselves at the center of it all, their unique partnership drawing both admiration and scrutiny. In the days that followed, they spent countless hours in briefings and strategy sessions. The base transformed into a hive of activity, with human and Vrax personnel working side by side, albeit with a palpable undercurrent of mistrust. One evening, as Patrick and Xena returned to their shared quarters, exhaustion etched on their faces, they found themselves alone for the first time in days. The moment the door closed behind them, Xena's markings pulsed with a mix of relief and concern. "Patrick," she said softly, "I sense the growing unease among your people. And the Vrax, they're not much better." Patrick sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. It's a delicate situation. We're asking two species who were at war just weeks ago to suddenly become allies." Xena moved closer, her alien features softening. "And us? Where do we fit in all this?" The question hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken implications. Patrick reached out, gently tracing the bioluminescent patterns on Xena's arm. The touch sent a shiver through both of them, a reminder of the unique connection they shared. "I don't know," Patrick admitted, "but I do know that what we have. It's important, not just for us, but maybe for everyone. We're proof that humans and aliens can find common ground." Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. "Captain O'Neill, your presence is required in the command center immediately," a voice called out. As they made their way through the bustling corridors, Patrick and Xena could feel the eyes of both humans and Vrax upon them. Whispers followed in their wake, some curious, others disapproving. In the command center, they found General Steele engaged in a heated discussion with Admiral Cross. Dr. Rossi stood off to the side, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Ah, Captain O'Neill, Xena," General Steele acknowledged their arrival. "We have a situation developing." Admiral Cross turned to face them, his alien features set in a grim expression. "The rogue faction has struck again. 2 of your outer colonies have gone dark." Patrick felt a chill run down his spine. "Casualties? Unknown at this time," General Steele replied. "But that's not all. Dr. Rossi, if you would." Dr. Rossi stepped forward, her eyes shining with impossibly strong excitement. "I've made a breakthrough with the prototype device. It's not just a weapon. It's the key to solving some of our most pressing environmental issues. Clean energy, atmospheric purification. The possibilities are staggering." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Patrick glanced at Xena, seeing his own mix of hope and apprehension reflected in her alien eyes. General Steele cleared his throat. "This changes things. The stakes are even higher now. We need a plan to deal with these rogue Vrax, and we need it fast." As if on cue, the door to the command center opened, admitting a tall, distinguished-looking man in a crisp suit. Senator James Hartwell strode in, his presence immediately commanding attention. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Hartwell said, his voice carrying a hint of sarcasm. "But I believe this situation requires a more decisive approach." Patrick felt Xena tense beside him as the senator's gaze swept over them, lingering on their proximity to each other. "Senator Hartwell," General Steele began, "I assure you, we're doing everything in our power to dash." "To what?" Hartwell interrupted. Coddle our former enemies while they pick off our colonies? I say it's time we show these aliens the full might of human military power. Admiral Cross bristled at this, his warrior instincts clearly aroused. You would risk reigniting a war that nearly destroyed both our species? As the tension in the room escalated, Patrick stepped forward. Sir, if I may suggest an alternative approach. All eyes turned to him as he outlined a daring plan, a joint task force of human and Vrax personnel, designed to track down and neutralize the rogue faction. As he spoke, Patrick could feel Xena's silent support beside him, her presence a reminder of what they were fighting for. The room fell silent as he finished. Senator Hartwell's face was a mask of skepticism, while General Steele looked thoughtful. It was Admiral Cross who broke the silence. It is an interesting proposal, the Vrax leader admitted, but it would require a level of trust that I'm not sure exists between our people. Patrick met the Admiral's gaze steadily. Then perhaps it's time we started building that trust. As the debate raged on, Patrick and Xena exchanged a glance. They knew that whatever the outcome, the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. But in that moment, standing side by side in the face of uncertainty, they felt ready to face whatever the future might hold. Hold! The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation settled over them. General Steele broke the tension. Captain O'Neill, your plan has merit. Assemble your team and prepare for immediate deployment. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Patrick and Xena worked tirelessly to form a joint human-Vrax task force, carefully selecting members from both species who demonstrated the ability to work together. The stealth ship, a marvel of combined human and Vrax technology, stood ready on the launch pad. As they boarded the vessel, Patrick felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. He glanced at Xena, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with a determined glow. Ready? He asked softly. Xena nodded, her alien features set in concentration. Always. The ship lifted off silently, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to both human and Vrax detection systems. As they approached Saturn's orbit, Patrick gathered the mixed crew for a final briefing. Remember, he emphasized, his voice carrying throughout the ship's command center, our success depends on our ability to work together. Human or Vrax, we're all on the same team now. Admiral Cross, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. The future of both our species hangs in the balance. We cannot afford to fail. As they neared their target, one of Saturn's moons, tension mounted on the bridge. The moon's surface came into view, revealing a formidable fortress nestled among the cratered landscape. Patrick leaned forward, studying the structure through the ship's advanced sensors. Those energy barriers look nasty, he muttered. Xena, what can you tell us about them? Xena moved to the sensor display, her fingers dancing over the controls. They're using a multi-layered defense system. We'll need to take out the power core to disable them completely. Patrick nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. All right, listen up. We're going in with 3 teams. Alpha Team, led by me and Xena, will target the power core. Beta Team, under Admiral Cross, will secure intelligence. Gamma Team will create a diversion at the main entrance. As the teams prepared for deployment, Patrick pulled Xena aside. I need you with me on this one, he said, his voice low. Your knowledge of Vrax tech could make all the difference. Xena's markings pulsed with agreement. I wouldn't have it any other way. They touched down silently on the moon's surface, the fortress looming before them. Patrick signaled, and the teams moved out with practiced precision. As Alpha Team infiltrated the lower levels, the sound of Gamma Team's diversionary attack echoed in the distance. The corridors were a maze of alien architecture, but Xena navigated them with confidence. Suddenly, a group of Vrax warriors rounded the corner. Patrick's eyes widened as he took in their enhanced physiques and predatory movements. Genetically modified, Xena whispered, her voice tense. The fight was brutal and swift. Patrick found himself back-to-back with Xena, their movements in perfect sync as they battled the enhanced Vrax. His human combat training melded seamlessly with Xena's alien techniques, creating a formidable fighting unit. As they fought their way deeper into the base, Patrick couldn't help but marvel at their teamwork. Human and alien, moving as one against a common foe. It felt right in a way he couldn't quite explain. Finally, they reached the power core, a pulsing mass of energy contained within a complex array of Vrax technology. Patrick approached cautiously, eyeing the security systems. "This is going to be tricky," he muttered, studying the multiple access points. "We need to deactivate it simultaneously from different locations." Xena stepped forward, her markings glowing intensely. "I can interface directly with the system. My Chalna biology might allow me to bypass the security protocols." Patrick hesitated, concern evident in his expression. "Are you sure? It could be dangerous." Xena met his gaze steadily. "We don't have a choice. I can do this, Patrick." With a nod, Patrick took up a defensive position as Xena approached the core. She placed her hands on the alien interface, her body tensing as she connected with the Vrax systems. Patrick watched in awe as her markings pulsed rapidly, mirroring the energy flow of the core. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Enemy reinforcements would be on them soon. Patrick gripped his weapon tightly, preparing for the onslaught. As the first wave of rogue Vrax soldiers burst into the room, he found himself caught between protecting Xena and fighting off the attackers. The next few minutes were a blur of intense combat. Patrick moved with fluid grace, his body operating on instinct and training. He could feel Xena's presence behind him, her connection to the core unwavering despite the chaos around them. Just as Patrick began to fear they might be overwhelmed, Xena let out a gasp. The power core's pulsing slowed, then stopped entirely. Throughout the base, systems began to fail. "You did it," Patrick breathed, turning to Xena. She swayed on her feet, clearly drained from the interface. Without hesitation, he moved to support her, their bodies fitting together naturally. Before they could catch their breath, Admiral Kraw's voice crackled over their comm systems. "Power core team, we have a situation. We've uncovered evidence of a bioweapon targeted specifically at humans. We need to evacuate immediately." Patrick's blood ran cold at the implications. He looked at Xena, seeing his own shock reflected in her alien features. "We need to move. Can you walk?" Xena nodded weakly, but as they started towards the exit, her steps faltered. Patrick made a split-second decision, scooping her into his arms. "I've got you," he said softly, feeling her relax against him. As they raced through the crumbling facility, alarms blaring and explosions rocking the structure, Patrick felt a surge of emotions he couldn't quite name. With Xena in his arms and danger all around, he'd never felt more alive, or more certain of his place in the universe. They burst out onto the moon's surface just as their ship descended, its ramp lowering to receive them. As Patrick carried Xena aboard, he caught sight of Admiral Kraz and the rest of the team already inside, clutching data drives that likely contained the bioweapon intelligence. The ship lifted off as the fortress began to implode behind them, debris pelting their hull. As they broke free of the moon's atmosphere and set course for Earth, Patrick finally allowed himself to breathe. He looked down at Xena, still cradled in his arms, and felt something shift between them. The mission was over, but Patrick knew that their journey and the challenges they would face were far from finished. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, he wondered what awaited them on their return and how their experiences would shape the future of human-Vrax relations. One thing was certain. Whatever lay ahead, he and Xena would face it together. Together, as the ship broke through Earth's atmosphere, Patrick felt Xena stir in his arms. "We're home," he said softly, helping her to stand. Xena's bioluminescent markings pulsed weakly as she regained her footing. "Home," she repeated, her alien eyes focusing on the approaching landmass below. The stealth ship touched down on a secluded landing pad surrounded by high-security fences and armed guards. As the ramp lowered, Patrick saw General Marcus Steele waiting with a contingent of scientists and diplomats. Their expressions were a mix of anticipation and concern. "Captain O'Neill, report." General Steele barked as Patrick descended the ramp, supporting Xena. "Mission accomplished, sir," Patrick replied, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "But we've uncovered something big. Something that changes everything." Admiral Cross emerged from the ship, clutching a data drive. "We must convene immediately," he said, his gravelly voice urgent. "The information we've gathered is troubling." General Steele nodded sharply. "Follow me. We've prepared a secure debriefing room." As they walked, Patrick noticed the wary glances cast between the human and Vrax members of their group. The fragile trust they'd built during the mission seemed to waver in the face of Earth's gravity. The debriefing room was a stark, windowless chamber filled with holographic displays and secure communication terminals. As the doors sealed behind them, Patrick felt the weight of what they'd discovered settle on his shoulders. Admiral Cross stepped forward, inserting the data drive into a terminal. "What we found goes beyond a simple rogue faction," he began, his alien features grim. "There is evidence of a bioweapon specifically engineered to target humans." The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Patrick saw General Steele's face harden, while the human scientists exchanged alarmed glances. "How advanced is this weapon?" one of the diplomats asked, her voice tight with impossibly strong fear. "Unknown," Cross replied, "but the data suggests it's in the final stages of development." As the implications sank in, Patrick felt Xena tense beside him. He turned to see her markings pulsing rapidly, her eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't quite read. "There's more," Patrick added, drawing the room's attention. "The facility we infiltrated. It wasn't just Vrax technology. There were elements we couldn't identify." General Steele's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning there might be another player in this game," Patrick said, meeting the general's gaze steadily. "One we haven't encountered before." The revelation sent a fresh wave of unease through the room. As the debriefing continued, Patrick found himself repeatedly glancing at Xena. Her usual composure seemed shaken, and he longed to comfort her, to assure her that they'd face whatever was coming together. But as the hours wore on, it became clear that their closeness had not gone unnoticed. General Steele pulled Patrick aside during a brief recess. "Captain," he said in a low voice, "I need you and Xena to undergo separate debriefings from this point on." Patrick stiffened. "Sir, with all due respect, Dash." "This isn't a request, O'Neill." Steele cut him off. "We need objective accounts, and your attachment to the alien could compromise that." Patrick wanted to argue, to defend the bond he and Xena had forged. But he recognized the steel in the general's eyes and knew this wasn't a battle he could win. Not now, at least. As they re-entered the debriefing room, Patrick caught Xena's eye. He tried to convey everything he couldn't say aloud in that single look, his support, his trust, his growing feelings. Her markings pulsed once in response, a silent acknowledgement. The next few days passed in a blur of interrogations, medical exams, and tense strategy sessions. Patrick found himself recounting every detail of the mission, defending his decisions, especially those involving Xena. Each night, he returned to his assigned quarters, the isolation gnawing at him. On the third day, as he was escorted to yet another debriefing, Patrick overheard a heated argument from a nearby room. "We can't trust them," a woman's voice shouted. "This bioweapon proves the Vrax were never truly committed to peace." "Senator Clarkson," came the measured response of General Steele, "we don't have all the facts yet." Admiral Cross and his team have been invaluable dash. Invaluable? Clarkson scoffed. Or are they just feeding us what we want to hear while their real plan unfolds? Patrick's escort hurried him along, but the exchange left him unsettled. The fragile alliance they'd fought so hard to build was already showing cracks. Later that evening, as Patrick sat in his quarters reviewing mission logs, his comm unit chirped. His heart raced as he saw the sender, Xena. The message was brief, constrained by the monitoring protocols in place. Results inconclusive. Further tests needed. Hope you are well. Patrick read between the lines. Whatever Xena had done to interface with the Vrax systems had left its mark, and the human doctors were struggling to understand the effects. He typed a quick reply, trying to infuse it with all the reassurance he couldn't give in person. As he hit send, an alert flashed across the screen. All personnel were being summoned for an emergency briefing. Patrick's combat instincts kicked in as he hurried to the command center, his mind racing through possible scenarios. He arrived to find the room already packed. Tension thick in the air. General Steele stood at the front, his face grave. As the last stragglers filed in, the general activated a large holographic display. As of 0300 hours, Steele began, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Our long-range sensors detected this. The hologram showed a vast swarm of ships, unlike anything Patrick had ever seen. They moved with an alien grace, their formation complex and ever-shifting. The energy signatures don't match any known Vrax designs, Steele continued. We believe this is a Chalna fleet. Patrick's eyes immediately sought out Xena, standing across the room. Her markings were pulsing rapidly, her expression a mix of shock and something else. Was it longing? As the implications of this new development sank in, Patrick realized that everything had changed once again. The delicate balance between humans and Vrax was about to be thrown into chaos by the arrival of a third player, Xena's own people. General Steele's voice cut through Patrick's thoughts. O'Neill, Xena, I need you both front and center. We're going to need your expertise for what comes next. As Patrick moved to join Xena, he felt the weight of countless eyes upon them. Human, Vrax, and now potentially Chalnith. The fate of 3 species seemed to rest on their shoulders. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. He and Xena would face it together. Together. As the briefing room buzzed with activity, Patrick and Xena found themselves at the center of attention once more. Captain O'Neill, you'll be leading our diplomatic team, General Steele announced. Xena, your knowledge of Chalnith culture will be invaluable. We need you both on the bridge immediately. They hurried through the corridors, the ship's alert status changing around them. Crew members rushed to their stations, faces taut with anticipation. As they entered the bridge, the view screen displayed a massive fleet of alien vessels, their sleek designs unlike anything Patrick had ever seen. Those are Chalnith ships, Xena whispered, her markings pulsing rapidly. I never thought I'd see them again. Admiral Cross looked up from his tactical display. Our long-range sensors detected them an hour ago. They're on an intercept course. Patrick studied the formation, his military training kicking in. That's both a defensive and offensive configuration. They're ready for anything. Can we communicate with them? General Steele asked, his voice tense. Xena stepped forward. I can help refine our first contact protocols. There are specific frequencies and methods the Chalnith use. For the next hour, Patrick and Xena worked side by side, integrating her knowledge into their approach strategy. Their hands brushed as they adjusted holographic displays, eyes meeting in moments of shared understanding. Despite the gravity of the situation, Patrick felt a warmth in his chest at their seamless collaboration. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Sir, the Chalnith fleet has changed course, a sensor officer reported. They're heading directly for Mars. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The newly established human colonies on Mars were now potentially in the path of an unknown alien force. Admiral Krau's gravelly voice broke the tension. "We need to intercept them before they reach the colonies. I have a plan, but it's risky." As Kraus outlined his strategy, Patrick felt a mix of admiration and apprehension. The maneuver would require precise navigation through the Chalna formation, placing their ship directly in the path of the alien mothership. "It's bold," Patrick said, "but it might be our only option to force a dialogue." General Steele nodded grimly. "Make it happen, people." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Patrick coordinated with the navigation team, while Xena prepared the communication systems. As they executed the complex series of maneuvers, Patrick felt the ship shudder around them, pushing its systems to the limit. Finally, they emerged from the last turn, finding themselves face to face with the enormous Chalnoth mothership. The alien vessel dwarfed their own, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly energy. "We're in position," Patrick reported, commencing hailing sequence. Xena stepped up to the communication array, her fingers dancing across the controls as she input the specialized Chalna protocols. The bridge crew held their breath as they waited for a response. After several tense moments, the main view screen flared to life. The image that appeared caused a collective gasp. An imposing female figure dominated the screen, her features both alien and eerily familiar. "I am Matriarch Zalara," the figure announced, her voice carrying an undercurrent of power. Her gaze swept across the bridge before locking onto Xena. Recognition flashed in her eyes. Xena stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the matriarch in the musical language of the Chalnoth. The ship's translation system struggled to keep pace, but the crew could sense the gravity of the exchange. As the conversation unfolded, Patrick watched Xena closely. Her posture had changed, taking on a regal bearing he'd never seen before. When she turned to address the human and Vrax's crew, her expression was a mix of emotions Patrick couldn't fully decipher. "The Chalnoth have come seeking me," Xena explained, her voice tight. I was a member of the royal family." The revelation sent shockwaves through the bridge. Patrick felt as if the deck had shifted beneath his feet. There was clearly much about Xena's past he didn't know. Before he could process this new information, Matriarch Zalara spoke again. This time, the translation came through clearly. "We propose a face-to-face meeting to discuss our mutual interests. The human colony on Mars will serve as neutral ground." Patrick's mind raced. The Mars colony wasn't equipped for high-level diplomatic encounters, let alone one involving 3 distinct species. Then an idea struck him. "The biodomes," he said, turning to General Steele. "We could use one of the large environmental domes as an impromptu conference center." Steele nodded, his expression grim but determined. "Make it happen, Captain. You and Xena will lead the preparations." As the bridge erupted into activity once more, Patrick caught Xena's eye. They would need to talk, but for now, there was work to be done. Together, they began coordinating the complex logistics of the upcoming meeting, their shared purpose pushing personal revelations aside for the moment. The diplomatic vessel, flanked by the imposing Chalnoth mothership, adjusted its course for Mars. As the red planet grew larger in the view screen, Patrick felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Whatever happened on the Martian surface would shape the future of not just 2, but 3 civilizations. He glanced at Xena, seeing his own mix of anticipation and apprehension reflected in her alien features. As they prepared to face the challenges ahead, Patrick knew one thing with certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together, united in their persistence to navigate the complex diplomatic waters ahead. As the ships began their descent towards the Mars colony, Patrick's eyes were fixed on the viewport, watching the red planet grow larger by the second. Suddenly, the ship lurched, and warning alarms blared throughout the cabin. "What's happening?" Patrick shouted over the noise. The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom. "Massive dust storm, sir. It came out of nowhere. We can't land at the designated site." Patrick exchanged a quick glance with Xena, her markings pulsing rapidly. He could see the concern in her eyes mirroring his own. "Divert to the emergency landing site," Patrick ordered, his mind already racing through the implications of this unexpected change. The ship shuddered as it battled against the raging winds, finally touching down on the outskirts of the colony. As the engines powered down, Patrick could hear the sand and debris pelting the hull. "Well, this complicates things," he muttered, turning to address the human Vrax delegation. "Everyone, stay calm. We'll need to adjust our plans, but we can make this work." As they disembarked, the full force of the Martian environment hit them. The thin atmosphere and lower gravity made every movement feel strange and unnatural. Patrick watched as the Vrax delegates struggled to maintain their balance, their tentacle-like appendages ill-suited for the sandy terrain. The Chalneth ship landed nearby, its massive form casting long shadows in the dim Martian light. As the alien delegates emerged, Patrick could see them faltering in the unfamiliar conditions. "Xena," he called out, "we need to get everyone inside quickly. The atmosphere here isn't suitable for prolonged exposure." She nodded, already moving to assist a stumbling Chalneth dignitary. Patrick keyed his comm unit, contacting the colony's maintenance crew. "This is Captain O'Neill. We need portable atmospheric regulators set up in the biodome immediately. We have delegates with diverse physiological needs." As the crew scrambled to accommodate the unexpected arrivals, Patrick led the way to the hastily prepared biodome. The structure loomed before them, a transparent bubble against the stark Martian landscape. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension as the three species gathered. Matriarch Zalara stood at the center, her imposing figure drawing all eyes. Patrick positioned himself near Xena, ready to offer support if needed. "Esteemed delegates," Zalara began, her voice carrying easily through the dome. "We have observed your conflict from afar, and we come bearing a solution that could change everything." The room fell silent, all attention fixed on the Chalneth leader. "We have developed terraforming technology," she continued, "capable of restoring the Vrax homeworld to its former glory." A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Admiral Kraz stepped forward, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "That's a bold claim, Matriarch," he growled. "What proof can you offer?" Zalara's expression remained impassive. "We are prepared to demonstrate a small-scale version of our technology on the Martian surface." Patrick's mind raced with the possibilities. If this technology was real, it could reshape the future of all three species. He caught Xena's eye, seeing his own mix of hope and apprehension reflected there. "I'll coordinate with the colony's scientific team," Patrick announced. "We'll monitor and record every aspect of this demonstration." As the delegates dispersed to prepare for the upcoming event, Patrick noticed Xena being pulled aside by Matriarch Zalara. He couldn't hear their conversation, but the intensity of their exchange was clear. Hours later, as Patrick worked with the colony's security team to set up a perimeter around the demonstration site, his comm unit buzzed. It was the chief of security, her voice tense. "Captain, we've detected an unidentified signal coming from within the colony. Origin unknown." Patrick's combat instincts kicked in. "Lock it down. I want a full sweep, but keep it quiet. We can't risk disrupting the negotiations." As he ended the call, he saw Xena approaching, her expression troubled. "Patrick," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." Before she could continue, a cheer went up from the gathered crowd. The demonstration was about to begin. Patrick squeezed Xena's hand briefly. "Later," he promised. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." They turned to watch as Matriarch Zalara activated the terraforming device. The targeted area of Martian soil began to shimmer, the very air seeming to warp and change. Gasps of amazement echoed through the biodome as sensors registered increasing atmospheric density and rising temperatures. A scientist rushed up to Patrick, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, we're detecting microbial life in the soil samples. It's incredible." The elation was short-lived. A piercing alarm cut through the air, followed by a violent tremor that shook the entire structure. Patrick's comm unit exploded with frantic reports. "EMP detected. All systems are going dark." As the biodome's environmental controls failed, chaos erupted. The harsh Martian atmosphere began seeping in, putting all the delegates at risk. "Everyone, stay calm," Patrick shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. "We need to evacuate now." He turned to Xena, who was already moving to assist the Chalna delegates. Her knowledge of their physiology proved invaluable as they treated those affected by the sudden exposure. As they worked to get everyone to safety, Patrick's mind raced. The mysterious signal, the perfectly timed attack. This was no accident. Someone had deliberately sabotaged the demonstration, threatening to unravel the fragile alliance they had worked so hard to build. With the immediate danger past, suspicion and accusation filled the air. Human Vrax and Chalneth representatives eyed each other warily, trust evaporating in the wake of the attack. Patrick knew they needed answers, and fast. As he prepared to launch a full investigation, he noticed Xena standing apart from the others, her markings pulsing in an unusual pattern. "Xena," he called out, moving towards her. "Are you all right?" She turned to him, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and fear. "Patrick, I can sense something. The electromagnetic fields, they're speaking to me somehow." As Patrick processed this new development, he realized that the situation had become far more complex than he could have imagined. With a potential saboteur in their midst, tensions rising between the three species, and Xena's newfound ability, the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. But as he looked at Xena, seeing the perseverance in her eyes, Patrick knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The fate of three civilizations hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. Patrick took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. "Captain O'Neill," a voice cut through the din. Patrick turned to see Dr. Eliza Chun, the colony's lead scientist, rushing towards him. "We detected an anomalous energy signature. It doesn't match anything we've seen before." Patrick's eyes narrowed. "Show me." Dr. Chun led Patrick and Xena to a makeshift command center, where holographic displays flickered with data streams. She pointed to a pulsing red dot on a 3D map of the colony. "The signal's coming from here," she explained, zooming in on a section of the maintenance tunnels. "It's faint but definitely artificial." Patrick exchanged a meaningful look with Xena. "We need to investigate this. Now." They assembled a small team, including 2 security officers and Dr. Chin. As they made their way through the winding maintenance tunnels, Xena suddenly stumbled, pressing a hand to her temple. "Xena," Patrick steadied her, concern etched on his face. She blinked rapidly, her markings pulsing erratically. "The electromagnetic fields. They're stronger here. I can feel them." Patrick nodded, filing away this new information. They pressed on, the tunnels growing narrower and less maintained. Finally, they reached a dead end. "This can't be right," Dr. Chin muttered, consulting her data pad. "The signal's coming from right here." Patrick ran his hands along the wall, feeling for any irregularities. His fingers caught on a barely perceptible seam. With a grunt of effort he pushed, and a section of the wall slid away, revealing a hidden chamber. The team stepped inside, their flashlights illuminating a space filled with sleek, unfamiliar technology. Consoles hummed with energy, and strange symbols flickered across holographic displays. "This isn't Vrax's tech," Xena murmured, her eyes wide. "And it's certainly not Chalnoth." Patrick moved closer to one of the consoles, a frown deepening on his face. "Some of this looks familiar. I've seen similar designs on classified missions back on Earth." Dr. Chen was already scanning the equipment. "The energy output is off the charts. This tech is decades, maybe centuries ahead of anything we have." As they explored the chamber, Patrick's mind raced. A fourth player in this already complex situation could change everything. He needed to report this to General Steele, but first, they had to secure the site. "Lock it down," he ordered the security officers. "No one in or out without my direct authorization." Just then, Patrick's comm unit crackled to life. "Captain O'Neill, report to the diplomatic quarters immediately. We have a situation." Patrick cursed under his breath. "Stay here," he told Dr. Chun and the security team. "Keep analyzing this tech, but don't touch anything you're not sure about." He and Xena hurried back through the tunnels, emerging into the chaotic atmosphere of the main colony. As they approached the diplomatic quarters, they could hear Ray's voices. Inside, they found Matriarch Zalara in a heated argument with Admiral Cross. General Steele stood between them, trying to maintain order. "Your so-called demonstration was nothing but a cover for your true intentions." Cross snarled, his tentacles writhing in agitation. Zalara's eyes flashed dangerously. "How dare you accuse us of deception? We came here in good faith." "Enough!" Steele's voice cut through the argument. He turned to Patrick and Xena as they entered. "Captain, we need to get this under control. And Xena, the matriarch has been demanding to speak with you." Zalara's gaze locked onto Xena. "It's time for you to return to your people, child. Your place is with us, not these aliens." Patrick felt Xena stiffen beside him. Before he could intervene, alarms blared throughout the colony. A voice came over the intercom. "Alert! Unauthorized gathering in Sector 7. All security personnel report immediately." On the nearby screens, they could see a crowd forming, humans holding makeshift signs and shouting angrily. At the front, a man with a megaphone rallied the protesters. "That's Marcus Thorne," Steele growled. "Local troublemaker. He's been stirring up anti-alien sentiment for weeks." Patrick watched the scene unfold, his training kicking in as he assessed the situation. "General, with your permission, I'll handle this." Steele nodded grimly. "Do what you need to, Captain. Just keep it contained." As Patrick moved to leave, Xena caught his arm. "I'm coming with you." He saw the willpower in her eyes and knew there was no point arguing. Together, they headed towards Sector 7, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The distant shouts of the protesters grew louder as they approached. Patrick's mind raced, formulating strategies to defuse the situation without escalating tensions further. Little did he know, the true test of his skills and his bond with Xena was just beginning. As Patrick and Xena approached Sector 7, the cacophony of angry voices grew louder. They exchanged a determined glance before rounding the corner to face the crowd. Marcus Thorne stood atop a makeshift platform, his voice amplified by a megaphone. "We didn't come to Mars to be overrun by aliens. It's time to take back our colony." The crowd roared in agreement, their faces contorted with fear and anger. Patrick assessed the situation quickly, noting the mix of colonists and a few suspicious individuals who seemed to be stoking the flames of unrest. "We need to shut this down," Patrick muttered to Xena. "But we can't risk a full-scale riot." Xena nodded, her markings pulsing with an unusual pattern. "I sense something off about Thorne's device. It's emitting a strange electromagnetic signature." Patrick's eyes narrowed. "Can you track it?" "I think so," Xena replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Patrick made a quick decision. Let's use this distraction to our advantage. We'll trace that signal while security handles the crowd. They slipped away from the main gathering, following Xena's unique ability to sense electromagnetic fields. As they descended into the colony's underground tunnel system, the distant shouts of the protesters faded, replaced by the hum of machinery and the echo of their footsteps. Xena led the way, her markings pulsing more intensely as they progressed deeper into the maze-like tunnels. "The signal's getting stronger," she whispered, her voice tight with concentration. Suddenly, she stumbled, pressing a hand to her temple. Patrick caught her arm, steadying her. "Xena, what's wrong?" She blinked rapidly, her markings flickering erratically. "The fields. They're so intense here. It's overwhelming." Patrick squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "We can turn back if dash." "No!" Xena cut him off, straightening. "We need to see this through." They pressed on, the tunnels growing narrower and less maintained. Finally, they reached a nondescript door that looked no different from dozens they'd passed. But Xena's reaction told a different story. "It's here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever's generating that signal, it's right behind this door." Patrick drew his sidearm, nodding to Xena. With practiced efficiency, they breached the door, entering a room that defied all expectations. A sophisticated command center filled the space, screens flickering with data streams and unfamiliar symbols. The technology was unlike anything Patrick had seen before, a mix of human, Vrax, and utterly alien designs. "What is this place?" Xena breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the array of advanced equipment. Patrick moved cautiously through the room, his training kicking in as he scanned for threats. Some kind of secret facility. But whose? As they explored, the pieces began to fall into place. Patrick found documents linking the human extremists to the rogue Vrax faction they'd encountered earlier. The implications were staggering. "This goes beyond just Earth and Mars," Patrick said, his voice tight. "We're looking at a multi-species conspiracy." Before Xena could respond, an alarm blared, red lights flashing throughout the facility. They'd triggered some hidden security system. "We need to move now," Patrick shouted, grabbing a data drive and shoving it into his pocket. They raced for the exit, but the door slammed shut, locking them in. The sound of booted feet echoed from hidden corridors. Patrick took up a defensive position, his weapon at the ready. Xena stood beside him, her body tense, markings pulsing rapidly. The first wave of attackers burst into the room, a mix of humans and Vrax, all heavily armed. Patrick's training took over as he engaged the nearest threats, his movements fluid and precise. Beside him, Xena was a blur of motion. Her newly enhanced abilities manifested in ways neither of them expected. She dodged incoming fire with preternatural speed, her movements guided by an intuitive understanding of the electromagnetic fields around her. But as the battle intensified, Xena's powers began to fluctuate wildly. One moment, she was deflecting energy weapons with a gesture. The next, she cried out in pain, her markings flaring with blinding intensity. Patrick fought his way to her side, shielding her with his body as he took down two more attackers. "Xena, are you all right?" She gritted her teeth, clearly in distress. "The energy. It's too much. I can't control it." Realizing the danger, Patrick made a split-second decision. He scooped Xena into his arms and charged towards a weakened section of wall, his shoulder lowered like a battering ram. The wall gave way under the impact, revealing a maintenance shaft beyond. Patrick stumbled through, Xena clinging to him as alarms blared behind them. They navigated the twisting passages, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter. Finally, they emerged into a quiet section of the colony, both breathing heavily. As the immediate danger passed, Patrick gently set Xena down, concern etched on his face. "How are you feeling?" Xena leaned against the wall, her markings still pulsing erratically. "I'll be all right. But Patrick, what we found down there." He nodded grimly. "I know. This changes everything." As they made their way back to the diplomatic quarters, both knew that the fragile peace they'd been working towards was now balanced on a knife's edge. The data they recovered hinted at a shadowy organization called the Galactic Equilibrium, manipulating tensions between humans, Vrax, and Chalnith for its own inscrutable purposes. Patrick's mind raced with the implications. They needed to present their findings to the right people, and quickly. But as he looked at Xena, still shaken from the ordeal, he realized that their personal dynamics had shifted as well. The bond between them had deepened through shared danger and reliance on each other's strengths. Yet the complexities of their situation, a human soldier and an alien dignitary caught in the middle of an interstellar conspiracy, were more apparent than ever. As they approached the diplomatic quarters, Patrick steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of 3 civilizations hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. Patrick took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. As they entered the diplomatic quarters, General Steele's stern expression softened slightly at the sight of their disheveled appearance. "Report, Captain," he ordered, his eyes darting between Patrick and Xena. Patrick opened his mouth to speak when a priority alert flashed across the room's main display screen. Dr. Elena Rossi's face appeared, her eyes wide with urgency. "General Steele, Captain O'Neill, we've detected a massive energy surge from the Martian polar ice caps," she announced, her voice tense. "The signature matches what we've seen from the Galactic Equilibrium technology." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Patrick exchanged a glance with Xena, who nodded almost imperceptibly. He turned to General Steele. "Sir, we need to mobilize immediately. I recommend forming an interspecies task force to investigate this threat." Steele's brow furrowed, but he nodded sharply. "Agreed. You'll lead the operation, Captain. Assemble your team and prepare for immediate deployment." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Patrick coordinated with Vrax and Chalnith representatives to select specialists for the task force. Xena worked alongside him, her diplomatic skills proving invaluable in smoothing over interspecies tensions. As they boarded the modified rover designed for long-range Martian exploration, Patrick couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The vehicle's interior was cramped, filled with advanced equipment and the diverse members of their hastily assembled team. Patrick took his place at the command station, activating the rover systems. "All right, people," he addressed the team, his voice steady. "Our mission is to investigate the energy surge at the polar ice caps and neutralize any threat we encounter. We're dealing with technology far beyond our current understanding, so stay alert and follow protocols." The rover lurched into motion, its massive wheels easily navigating the rough Martian terrain. As they left the colony behind, the vast, rust-colored landscape stretched out before them, broken only by the occasional rocky outcropping or deep crater. Hours into their journey, Patrick found a moment of relative quiet. He made his way to where Xena sat, her eyes closed in concentration as she monitored the electromagnetic fields around them. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly, careful not to disturb her too much. Xena's eyes fluttered open, her markings pulsing gently. "I'm managing," she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. "This mission, it's more than just about uncovering a conspiracy now, isn't it?" Patrick nodded, lowering his voice further. "We're at a crossroads. What we find out there could change everything, for humans, Vrax, and Chalnith alike." They fell silent for a moment, the weight of their shared responsibility hanging between them. Patrick found himself acutely aware of their proximity in the confined space, the subtle alien scent of her skin, the way her markings seemed to shimmer in response to his presence. "Patrick," Xena said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever happens out there, I want you to know dash." A sharp alarm cut through the air, jerking them both to attention. Patrick rushed back to the command station, his heart racing. "Report!" he barked. Multiple contacts approaching fast. One of the human techs responded, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're using some kind of cloaking technology. We almost missed them." Patrick's mind raced through tactical options. "Xena, can you sense them?" She nodded, her markings pulsing rapidly. "Yes, their electromagnetic signatures are clear now that I know what to look for." "Guide us," Patrick ordered, taking manual control of the rover. "Everyone else battle stations. We're about to have company." The next few minutes were chaos. The rover swerved and jolted as Patrick maneuvered based on Xena's rapid-fire directions. Energy blasts from their unseen attackers scorched the Martian soil around them. "There!" Xena shouted, pointing to what looked like empty space. Patrick didn't hesitate, firing the rover's defensive weapons. A shimmer in the air revealed a sleek, alien vehicle as it exploded. The battle raged on, Patrick coordinating their defense, while Xena used her abilities to detect and disrupt the attackers' cloaking fields. The diverse skills of their interspecies team proved crucial, with Vrak's long-range sensors complementing Chalneth energy weapons. As the last enemy vehicle went down, a tense silence fell over the rover. Patrick scanned the horizon, wary of further attacks. "Status report," he called out. "Minor damage to the outer hull," came the response. "No casualties." Patrick allowed himself a small sigh of relief before turning to Xena. "Can you sense anything else out there?" She shook her head, her markings dim with fatigue. "Nothing immediate, but—" Her eyes widened suddenly. "Patrick, look." He followed her gaze to a nearby ice formation. As the dust settled from their battle, a hidden entrance was revealed. A smooth, clearly artificial opening in the ice leading down into darkness. Patrick's mind focused as he realized the implications. "Looks like we've found our target," he said grimly. "Let's get ready to move out. Whatever's down there, the galactic equilibrium doesn't want us to find it." As the team prepared for their descent into the unknown, Patrick caught Xena's eye. The grit he saw there matched his own. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, for the sake of their peoples, their fragile peace, and the future they both longed to build. The journey back to the Mars colony was tense, the rover's cabin filled with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. Patrick's mind raced with the implications of their discovery beneath the polar ice caps. As they approached the outskirts of the settlement, he caught Xena's eye, noting the determined set of her jaw. "We need to report this immediately," he said, his voice low. "The galactic equilibrium's reach is far greater than we imagined." Xena nodded, her markings pulsing softly. "Agreed, but we must tread carefully. We don't know how deep their influence goes." As they entered the colony, General Steele was waiting for them, his face a mask of controlled urgency. "My office now," he said tersely. The next few hours were a whirlwind of debriefings and strategy sessions. Patrick presented their findings to a select group of human, Vraks, and Chalneth officials, his words carefully chosen to convey the gravity of the situation without inciting panic. "The device we discovered appears to be terraforming technology," he explained, bringing up holographic schematics. "Its potential applications are staggering." Admiral Cross leaned forward, his compound eyes fixed on the display. "This could solve resource scarcity issues across our worlds," he chittered, mandibles clicking in excitement. "Or become the most devastating weapon we've ever seen," Matriarch Zalara added, her voice tinged with caution. As the implications sank in, the room erupted into heated discussions. Patrick caught snippets of conversation. Talk of internal investigations, concerns about infiltrators, debates over control of the newfound technology. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Elena Rossi approached Patrick and Xena. "I need to run some tests," she said quietly, her eyes flickering to Xena's still pulsing markings. "Your exposure to the device may have had unforeseen consequences." Xena hesitated, then nodded. "I have been feeling unstable," she admitted. As Xena followed Dr. Rossi to the medical bay, Patrick found himself pulled into a series of intense planning sessions. The revelation of the galactic equilibrium's existence had sent shockwaves through the diplomatic corps, and swift action was needed. "We need to root out any potential equilibrium agents," General Steele declared, his voice hard. "No one is above suspicion." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Patrick coordinated with Vrax and Chalna security teams, setting up surveillance operations and conducting discreet interviews. The stress of the situation was palpable, with long-standing alliances suddenly called into question. In a rare moment of quiet, Patrick made his way to the medical bay to check on Xena. He found her sitting on an examination table, her expression troubled. "How are you feeling?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. Xena's markings flickered weakly. "Not well," she admitted. "Dr. Rossi says my cellular structure is becoming unstable. These new abilities, they're killing me, Patrick." The words hit him like a physical blow. Before he could respond, Dr. Rossi entered, her face grave. "We may have a solution," she said, bringing up a holographic display of the terraforming device. Exposure to specific frequencies generated by the device could potentially stabilize Xena's condition. But accessing it won't be easy," Patrick finished, understanding the implications. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent comm alert. "Captain O'Neill, report to Interrogation Room 3 immediately," General Steele's voice crackled. Patrick squeezed Xena's hand briefly before hurrying out. He arrived at the interrogation room to find a tense scene. Marcus Thorne, the captured Equilibrium operative, sat across from Admiral Cross and Matriarch Zalara. "He's offering information," General Steele explained quietly, "in exchange for leniency." The next hour was grueling. Thorne, his eyes darting nervously between his interrogators, revealed the existence of a hidden equilibrium base on one of Jupiter's moons. The information was a game-changer, offering a clear target in their fight against the shadowy organization. As they left the interrogation room, Admiral Cross pulled Patrick aside. "We need to strike quickly," he chittered, "before they have a chance to relocate." Patrick nodded, his mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "We'll need specialized equipment for the Jovian environment, and a team we can trust implicitly." The planning for the Jupiter mission consumed the next few days. Engineers from all 3 species worked around the clock, modifying spacecraft and developing protective gear capable of withstanding the harsh conditions. In the midst of the preparations, Patrick sought out Xena. He found her in the observation dome, staring out at the Martian landscape. "How are you holding up?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. Xena turned to face him, her expression a mixture of persistence and fear. "I want to be part of the mission," she said firmly. "My abilities, unstable as they are, could be crucial." Patrick started to protest, but the look in her eyes stopped him. He knew that feeling, the need to see things through, regardless of the personal cost. "We'll find a way," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand. As their fingers intertwined, he felt the subtle pulse of her electromagnetic field, a reminder of all they stood to lose and all they were fighting to protect. The day of departure arrived with a sense of grim anticipation. The hangar bay was a hive of activity as final preparations were made. Patrick moved through the crowd, checking in with each member of his carefully selected team. As he approached the modified ship that would carry them to Jupiter, he saw Matriarch Zalara deep in conversation with Admiral Cross. The Chalnif leader caught his eye and beckoned him over. "We've made some final modifications," she said, gesturing to the ship. Chalneth shielding technology, integrated with Vrack's sensor arrays. It should give you an edge out there. Patrick nodded his thanks, recognizing the gesture for what it was, a symbol of the growing trust between their species. As the team began to board, Patrick took a moment to survey the hangar. Human Vracks and Chalneth working side by side, united against a common threat. It was a sight he would have thought impossible just weeks ago. Xena appeared at his side, her protective suit accentuating the glow of her markings. "Ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite the risks they both knew she was taking. Patrick met her gaze, seeing his own drive reflected there. "Let's go save the solar system," he said, managing a small smile. As they boarded the ship, Patrick felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The fate of 3 civilizations hung in the balance, and the true test of their fledgling alliance lay ahead. The ship's engines roared to life, and as they lifted off from the Martian surface, Patrick steeled himself for the challenges that awaited them in the shadows of Jupiter. Jupiter's looming form. The ship's engines hummed with nearly unleashed power as Patrick reviewed their mission parameters one last time. Suddenly, the comm system crackled to life. "Captain O'Neill, urgent message from Mars Command," the pilot announced. Patrick exchanged a glance with Xena before activating the holo-display. General Steele's grim face materialized before them. "We've got a situation," Steele said without preamble. Long-range sensors just picked up an unidentified vessel entering the system. Energy signature doesn't match anything we've seen before. Patrick's mind raced through the implications. Equilibrium reinforcements? "Unknown," Steele replied, "but we can't take any chances. I need you to investigate." Patrick nodded, already formulating a plan. "Understood. Sir will take a small team in the Interceptor. The rest can continue prepping for Jupiter." After a brief strategy session, Patrick assembled his recon team. Xena, despite her weakened state, insisted on joining. "My abilities could be crucial," she argued, her markings pulsing with grit. Within the hour, they were aboard the sleek Interceptor, its hull gleaming with the latest advancements in human Chalneth engineering. Dr. Rossi handed Patrick a compact device just before departure. "Prototype scanner," she explained. "Should give you a look under their hood, so to speak." The journey was tense, the Interceptor's enhanced engines pushing them to the edge of the unknown ship's projected course. Patrick kept a close eye on Xena, noting the strain evident in her posture. "Energy readings are off the charts," the Vrack sensor operator reported as they neared their target. "Nothing like this in our databases." Patrick activated the cloaking device, the ship shimmering into invisibility. "Take us in closer. Nice and easy." As they maneuvered for a better scan, Xena suddenly gasped, doubling over in pain. Her markings flared wildly, casting eerie shadows across the cockpit. "Xena!" Patrick rushed to her side, supporting her trembling form. "Me boy! No!" He half-carried her to the medical pod, his fingers flying over the controls. The stasis field activated just as Xena's body began to emit erratic bursts of electromagnetic energy. "Hang on," Patrick murmured, administering a stabilizing agent. He watched anxiously as her readings slowly normalized. Xena's eyes fluttered open, meeting his gaze. "Patrick," she whispered, her voice weak but steady. "I'm fine. The mission dash." A violent shudder rocked the ship, cutting her off. Patrick sprinted back to the command center. "Status report," he barked. Massive energy surged from the alien vessel. The pilot responded, hands flying over the controls. "Our systems are dash." The words died as every display went dark. For a heart-stopping moment, they drifted in silence. Then an invisible force seized the Interceptor, dragging them inexorably toward the looming alien ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Patrick ordered, but the controls remained unresponsive. As they were pulled into a cavernous docking bay, Patrick made a snap decision. Combat gear, everyone. Prepare for hostile contact. The team donned their exosuits, weapons at the ready. Xena insisted on joining them, her dedication overriding Patrick's concern. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the bay doors slid open. Patrick raised his rifle, every muscle coiled for action. What emerged was beyond anything he could have imagined. The beings were vaguely humanoid, but with unmistakable traits of Vrax and Chalna physiology seamlessly integrated. Their leader, a tall figure with iridescent skin and compound eyes, stepped forward. "I am Zanvorn," he announced in flawless English. "We come in peace." Patrick lowered his weapon slightly, palms sweating. "Who? What are you?" Zanvorn's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "We are your future, Captain O'Neill. Or rather, one possible future." Over the next hour, Zanvorn explained their origins. A hybrid civilization from an alternate timeline where humans, Vrax, and Chalnath had successfully merged into a single, advanced species. "We've been monitoring your conflict with the galactic equilibrium," Zanvorn continued. "The outcome here could have far-reaching consequences across multiple realities. We're here to help." Patrick processed the information, weighing the potential risks and benefits. "I appreciate the offer," he said carefully, "but I'll need to verify your claims before agreeing to any alliance." Zanvorn nodded, seemingly unsurprised. "Of course. We expected no less. As a gesture of good faith, perhaps we can assist your companion?" He gestured toward Xena, who was visibly struggling to maintain her composure. A hybrid medical officer approached, scanning Xena with a device far more advanced than anything Patrick had seen. "Fascinating," the officer murmured. "Your cellular structure is highly unstable, but we may be able to reverse the process." Hope flickered in Xena's eyes. "How?" "The terraforming device you discovered," Zanvorn explained. "With some modifications, we could use its energy signature to stabilize your condition." Patrick's tactical mind immediately saw the opportunity. "The device is an equilibrium base on Jupiter's moon," he said. "If you're serious about helping us, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone." As they hammered out the details of a potential joint operation, Patrick couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. The addition of these trans-dimensional hybrids to the equation changed everything. Hours later, as the interceptor docked back at the Mars colony, Patrick steeled himself for the challenging conversations ahead. Explaining this development to the already tense alliance of humans, Vrax, and Chalnath would be no easy task. Admiral Kraz, Matriarch Zalara, and the human military leadership gathered in the war room, their faces a mix of skepticism and barely concealed excitement as Patrick began his briefing. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, calling up a holographic display of Zanvorn's ship, "I think it's safe to say that the game has changed." "Changed," Patrick concluded, his gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders. A tense silence filled the war room as the implications of his report sank in. Admiral Kraz's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Matriarch Zalara's tail swished back and forth, her normally impassive face betraying a hint of concern. General Steele was the first to speak. "This hybrid civilization, can we trust them?" Patrick chose his words carefully. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. If their intentions are genuine, they could be a game changer in our fight against the galactic equilibrium. And if they're not," Matriarch Zalara interjected, her voice sharp, "then we'll have let an even greater threat right to our doorstep," Patrick admitted. "But I believe the potential benefits outweigh the risks." The room erupted into heated debate. As the arguments raged, Patrick felt a hand on his arm. He turned to find Xena at his side, her eyes bright with drive despite the visible strain on her features. "We need to focus on the mission," she said softly. The device on Jupiter's moon. It's our best chance, both against the equilibrium and for my condition. Patrick nodded, squeezing her hand. You're right. Let's get to work. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The Mars colony hummed with energy as final preparations for the Jupiter mission kicked into high gear. Patrick found himself constantly on the move, overseeing equipment loadouts, reviewing tactical plans, and coordinating with the newly arrived hybrid delegation. On the eve of their departure, Dr. Elena Rossi approached Patrick and Xena with an excited gleam in her eye. I have something for you, she said, leading them to her lab. Inside, she presented them with two sleek, form-fitting suits. Prototype personal shields, she explained. They combine the best of human, Vrax, and Chalna technology. They should offer significant protection against Jupiter's environment. Patrick examined the suit with admiration. Impressive work, Doctor. How do we test them? Rossi's smile widened. I was hoping you'd ask. We've set up a simulation chamber to replicate Jovian conditions. Care to give it a try? Minutes later, Patrick and Xena stood side by side in the testing chamber, their new suits gleaming under the harsh lights. As the door sealed shut, Patrick felt a mixture of anticipation and unease. Initiating simulation, Rossi's voice crackled over the intercom. Brace yourselves. The chamber came to life around them. Wind howled, pressure increased, and the temperature plummeted. Patrick watched in awe as his suit adjusted, a faint shimmer of energy enveloping him. Beside him, Xena's markings pulsed erratically. It's working, she said, her voice filled with wonder. I can feel the suit compensating for the electromagnetic fluctuations. Their elation was short-lived. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber, followed by a hiss of escaping air. Patrick's eyes widened as he saw a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the viewing window. Shut it down, he yelled, but the intercom remained silent. The cracks grew larger, pieces of reinforced glass beginning to buckle inward. Without hesitation, Patrick lunged toward Xena. He wrapped his arms around her, using his body as a shield just as the window shattered. Shards of glass and debris rained down upon them, but Patrick felt only a dull impact against his suit's energy field. For a moment, they stood frozen in their embrace, the howling wind of the malfunctioning chamber whipping around them. Patrick became acutely aware of Xena's rapid heartbeat, the warmth of her body pressed against his. The chamber door burst open, and emergency crews rushed in. As they were ushered to safety, Patrick and Xena exchanged a look of shared understanding. The incident had brought them closer, not just physically but emotionally as well. As they recovered from the testing mishap, activity elsewhere in the colony reached a fever pitch. Admiral Cross oversaw the final preparations for the decoy fleet, a collection of unmanned ships designed to draw equilibrium attention away from Jupiter. The fleet will begin its maneuvers in the asteroid belt as soon as you launch, Cross explained during the final briefing. With any luck, it will keep the equilibrium occupied long enough for you to complete your mission. Matriarch Zalara stepped forward, her scales shimmering in the low light of the war room. We've also equipped your ship with our most advanced cloaking technology, she announced. It should allow you to approach the equilibrium base undetected. As the briefing concluded, Patrick took a moment to address the assembled task force. What we're about to attempt is unprecedented, he began, his voice steady. We're not just three species working together. We're laying the foundation for a new future, one where our differences make us stronger, not divided. He paused, looking each team member in the eye. The mission objectives are clear. Infiltrate the base, secure the terraforming technology, and gather all the intelligence we can on the Equilibrium's leadership. But above all, watch out for each other. Our unity is our greatest strength. With final preparations complete, the task force boarded their ship, a sleek, advanced vessel christened Unity. As Patrick settled into the captain's chair, he felt the weight of responsibility settle upon his shoulders. All systems check out, Captain, the Vrax's pilot reported. We're ready for launch. Patrick took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the launch controls. Unity, you are clear for departure. Godspeed. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing them away from the Martian surface. As they accelerated towards Jupiter, Patrick allowed himself a moment of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared an alert. Captain, the sensor operator called out, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations near the moon. Patrick's brow furrowed. Change course, he ordered. Let's take a closer look. As they approached lunar orbit, the source of the anomaly became clear. A hidden equilibrium outpost nestled within one of the moon's largest craters. Looks like we've got an opportunity to gather some intelligence, Patrick mused. He turned to Xena, who nodded in silent agreement. Prepare a small infiltration team. We're going in. In for a closer look, Patrick said, his voice steady despite the sudden change in plans. The Unity glided silently into lunar orbit, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. As they approached the crater housing the hidden equilibrium outpost, Patrick turned to his team. Gear up, he ordered. We're going in. Minutes later, Patrick and Xena stood at the Unity's airlock, leading a small assault team. The rest of the crew remained on board, ready to provide support or extract them if necessary. Patrick ran a final check on his environmental suit, the new prototype Dr. Rossi had provided. Its sleek lines concealed a wealth of advanced technology, a fusion of human ingenuity and alien innovations. Beside him, Xena's markings pulsed with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Ready? Patrick asked, his hand hovering over the airlock controls. Xena nodded, her eyes gleaming with tenacity behind her helmet's faceplate. The airlock cycled open, exposing them to the vast, silent expanse of the lunar surface. One by one, they activated their personal thruster packs and pushed off from the ship. Patrick led the way, guiding his team across the pockmarked lunar landscape. The low gravity made their movements feel almost dreamlike, each step carrying them meters forward in a graceful arc as they approached the equilibrium base. A new challenge presented itself. Patrick's helmet display lit up with warnings, detecting a field of sense-equipped mines surrounding the facility. Hold position, Patrick commanded, his mind racing to find a solution. He turned to Xena, an idea forming. Your electromagnetic abilities. Can you detect these mines? Xena closed her eyes, concentrating. Her markings flared brightly, and she nodded. I can sense them. Their energy signatures are distinct. Good, Patrick said. We'll move forward slowly. You take point, disable each mine as we pass. The rest of us will follow in your footsteps. The team advanced cautiously, with Xena at the lead. Her hands moved in graceful, precise motions as she manipulated the electromagnetic fields around each mine, rendering them inert. Patrick watched in awe as she worked, her abilities proving invaluable once again. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, they reached the base's outer perimeter. The entrance loomed before them, a heavily fortified structure built to withstand the harsh lunar environment and potential attacks. Patrick studied the design, his tactical mind searching for weaknesses. He spotted a junction where different sections of the structure met, a potential vulnerability. Here, he said, pointing to the spot. We'll breach here. He retrieved a set of compact explosive charges from his equipment pack, carefully placing them at key points along the weak spot. The team moved back to a safe distance as Patrick activated the detonator. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but they felt the vibration through the lunar surface. When the dust settled, a jagged opening gaped in the base's exterior, just large enough for them to enter. As they slipped inside, alarms began to blare. The element of surprise was gone, but they had achieved their primary objective: entry into the facility. Patrick's voice crackled over the team's comm system. "We split up here. Xena, take half the team and head for the central computer. Download everything you can find. The rest of you with me. We're going after that terraforming device." Xena nodded, her expression a mix of grit and concern. "Be careful," she said, her eyes meeting Patrick's for a moment before she turned to lead her group down a side corridor. Patrick watched her go, then signaled his team forward. They moved swiftly through the base's corridors, encountering sporadic resistance from equilibrium guards. The new suits proved their worth, deflecting energy blasts and providing enhanced strength and agility. After fighting through several security checkpoints, Patrick's team reached a massive chamber. In its center stood a device unlike anything he had ever seen, a swirling mass of energy contained within a complex framework of alien technology. "The terraforming device," Patrick breathed, momentarily awestruck. His awe quickly turned to alarm as he realized the device was active, its energy patterns shifting and pulsing with increasing intensity. "It's already been activated," he informed his team. "We need to shut it down and figure out how to transport it back to the ship." As they approached the device, Patrick's comm crackled to life. Xena's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Patrick, we've reached the central computer, but we've got a problem. I tried to interface with the system, and there was some kind of power surge. My suit, it's damaged. We've applied an emergency patch, but I don't know how long it will hold." Patrick's heart raced. "Are you okay? Do you need to abort?" "No," Xena replied, her voice strained but determined. "I've managed to download critical data. You need to hear this. The equilibrium has agents embedded throughout our governments and militaries. All 3 species." Before Patrick could respond, another voice broke in, the Unity's pilot. "Captain, we've got incoming. A massive equilibrium fleet just entered Jupiter's orbit. Our window for escape is closing fast." Patrick's mind whirled, assessing their options. The terraforming device was too valuable to leave in equilibrium hands, but they had no time to disable and transport it. "Change of plans," he announced to both teams. "We're rigging this device for destruction. Xena, finish your download and get your team to the extraction point. We'll meet you there." As his team set to work planning explosives around the terraforming device, Patrick heard the sound of approaching equilibrium forces. They were running out of time. "Charge is set," one of his team members reported. "Good," Patrick said. "Let's move." They fought their way back through the base, the corridors now swarming with equilibrium troops. Patrick used the last of his explosives to create a diversion, allowing both teams to regroup at their entry point. As they prepared to make their final push to the extraction point, Patrick looked at Xena. Even through her damaged suit, he could see the strain on her face. "Almost there," he assured her, gripping her arm supportively. They activated their thruster packs and launched themselves out of the breach, back onto the lunar surface. Behind them, the base erupted in a series of explosions, the terraforming device destroyed. As they approached the Unity, they saw the ship under attack by equilibrium fighters. The pilot executed a series of daring maneuvers, creating an opening for the team to board through the airlock. Once everyone was aboard, Patrick shouted, "Go! Get us out of here!" The Unity's engines roared to life, accelerating away from the moon. As they approached Jupiter, the pilot used the massive planet's magnetic field to slingshot them away from the pursuing equilibrium fleet. In the ship's medical bay, Xena suddenly collapsed. The Unity's medical officer rushed to her side, working frantically to stabilize her condition. Patrick stood by, torn between his duty to coordinate their escape and his desire to stay with Xena. The medical officer looked up at him, her expression grave. "Captain, she needs more advanced treatment than we can provide here. We need to get her to Zamvorn's ship as soon as possible. As the Unity raced back towards Mars, Patrick found himself facing a difficult decision. The intelligence they had gathered was crucial, but Xena's life hung in the balance. He knew that the choices he made in the next few hours could shape not only their mission, but the future of their entire alliance. With Mars growing larger in the view screen, Patrick steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The true test of their unity was only just beginning. With Mars growing larger in the view screen, Patrick steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The true test of their unity was only just starting. As they approached Mars' orbit, Patrick's gaze shifted between the looming red planet and Xena's prone form. Her condition was deteriorating rapidly, the makeshift patch on her suit barely containing the damage. The medical officer's words echoed in his mind. She needs more advanced treatment than we can provide here. In that moment, Patrick made a decision that would alter the course of their mission. Change course, he ordered, his voice firm. Set a vector for Zamvorn's ship. The pilot's surprise was evident in his voice. Sir, what about the debriefing? Xena's life takes priority, Patrick replied, leaving no room for argument. We'll debrief once she's stable. The Unity banked sharply, its engines flaring as it adjusted course. Within minutes, the sleek form of Zamvorn's vessel came into view, its hybrid design a testament to the melding of technologies from multiple species. As they docked, Patrick lifted Xena into his arms, her body alarmingly light. He carried her swiftly through the airlock, where a team of hybrid medical personnel awaited. Their faces were a blend of familiar and alien features, a visual representation of their unique genetic makeup. This way, one of them instructed, leading Patrick to their advanced medical bay. The room was unlike anything Patrick had ever seen. Pulsating energy fields surrounded various treatment pods, each humming with a barely perceptible vibration. The medical team worked with practiced efficiency, transferring Xena to one of the pods. Patrick watched transfixed as they began their work. Energy fields of varying colors enveloped Xena's body, while holographic displays monitored her vital signs in real time. He couldn't tear his eyes away, even as Admiral Cross and Matriarch Zalara entered the medical bay. Captain, Admiral Cross' gruff voice broke through Patrick's concentration. We need a preliminary briefing. Patrick nodded, reluctantly turning away from Xena. He retrieved the data drive from his suit and handed it to the Admiral. Everything we found is on here, he explained, including information about a hidden equilibrium command center in the Kuiper Belt. As the Alliance leaders digested this information, Zamvorn approached Patrick. The hybrid leader's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly intelligence as he spoke. Captain, we may be able to do more than just heal your friend. Patrick's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Our technology allows us to enhance and stabilize electromagnetic abilities, Zamvorn explained. We could potentially upgrade Xena's capabilities, making her an even more valuable asset in our fight against the equilibrium. Patrick's mind raced, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. He turned to the medical team, seeking their input. After a brief discussion and careful consideration, he gave his consent. The procedure that followed was unlike anything Patrick had ever witnessed. Xena's body was bathed in carefully calibrated energy fields, her form seeming to shimmer and shift. Hours passed, with Patrick refusing to leave her side, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying her vital signs. Meanwhile, aboard the Mars colony, Dr. Elena Rossi and her team pored over the data retrieved from the Jupiter moon base. Their findings sent shockwaves to the Alliance leadership. Detailed plans for a massive terraform weaponry system, capable of altering entire planets. As this information reached the medical bay, Patrick felt the weight of their mission increase exponentially. The need for a decisive strike against the Equilibrium's Kuiper Belt headquarters was now more urgent than ever. Just as Patrick was processing this new development, Xena's treatment entered its final phase. Her body began to emit a subtle glow, her markings pulsing with newfound energy. As the medical team stepped back, Xena's eyes fluttered open. Patrick was at her side in an instant. "Xena, how do you feel?" She sat up slowly, her movements fluid and graceful. With a wave of her hand, she manipulated the electromagnetic devices in the room, demonstrating a level of control she had never possessed before. "I feel different, stronger." Their reunion was cut short as Admiral Krah's voice came over the intercom. "Captain Patrick, your presence is required immediately. The Alliance leaders have convened an emergency session." Patrick hesitated, torn between his duty and his desire to stay with Xena. She nodded encouragingly. "Go. I'll be fine." With a final glance at Xena, Patrick made his way to the command center. The atmosphere was tense as he entered. The gathered leaders engaged in heated discussion. All eyes turned to him as Admiral Krah spoke. "Captain, in light of the new intelligence, we need to formulate our next move. What do you propose?" Patrick took a deep breath, his mind racing through the possibilities. He thought of Xena's enhanced abilities, the advanced technology at their disposal, and the urgency of their situation. In that moment, a bold plan began to take shape. "We strike now," he declared, his voice filled with conviction. "We launch an immediate assault on the Equilibrium's Kuiper Belt base. With the element of surprise in our combined forces, we have a chance to end this conflict decisively." The room erupted into a flurry of debate, leaders arguing the merits and risks of such a daring move. Patrick stood his ground, presenting his case with unwavering purpose. As the discussion stretched on, he could feel the momentum shifting in his favor. Finally, after hours of intense deliberation, a consensus was reached. The assault would proceed, with Patrick at the helm of a joint task force. As the meeting adjourned, Patrick rushed back to the medical bay, eager to check on Xena and share the news. He arrived to find her standing at the center of the room, her body radiating a subtle energy field. She turned to him, her eyes shining with newfound power and purpose. "I'm ready," she said, anticipating his question. "Whatever comes next, I'm with you." Patrick nodded, a mix of emotions surging through him. As they embraced, both acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead, he knew that their greatest test was yet to come. The preparations began immediately. The Unity underwent rapid upgrades, its systems integrated with hybrid technology to enhance its capabilities for the long journey ahead. Patrick oversaw the formation of an elite strike team, carefully selecting members from each allied species. As the launch date approached, tension mounted throughout the Mars colony. The Alliance leaders made final preparations, knowing that the outcome of this mission could determine the fate of their civilizations. Patrick and Xena spent their remaining time training intensively, pushing their abilities to new limits. They strategized, planned, and prepared for every conceivable scenario they might face in the Kuiper Belt. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The Unity, now a testament to the combined technological prowess of 4 species, stood ready on the launch pad. Patrick and Xena boarded the ship, leading their diverse team of humans, Vrax, Chalneth, and hybrid beings. As the engines roared to life, Patrick took his place in the captain's chair. He looked around at his crew, each face reflecting a mix of persistence and apprehension. Xena stood at his side, her presence a source of strength and reassurance. "All systems are go, Captain," the pilot reported. "We're ready for launch." Patrick nodded, his hand hovering over the controls. With a deep breath, he gave the command that would set in motion the most daring mission of their lives. "Unity, you are clear for departure. Let's finish this." The ship lifted off, accelerating rapidly as it broke free from Mars gravity. As they set course for the distant Kuiper Belt, Patrick knew that the final confrontation with the galactic equilibrium lay ahead. The future of multiple species and the balance of power in the galaxy hung in the balance, and it all rested on the shoulders of this unlikely alliance. As the Unity streaked away from Mars, becoming a small point of light in the vast expanse of space, the true scale of their mission began to set in. The journey to the outer reaches of the solar system would be long and fraught with danger, but for now, they were together, united in purpose and strengthened by their diversity. The ship's engines hummed steadily, propelling them toward their destiny in the cold, dark frontier of the Kuiper Belt, where the fate of galaxies would be decided. The Unity accelerated away from Mars, its advanced engines propelling the ship towards the outer reaches of the solar system. As the red planet faded into the distance, Patrick turned his attention to the mission ahead. "All right, team, we have a long journey ahead of us." Patrick addressed the strike force gathered in the ship's main briefing room. "But every moment counts. We need to be at our absolute best when we reach the Kuiper Belt." Xena stood beside him, her body emanating a subtle energy field. "We'll be running combat simulations daily," she added. "Everyone needs to be prepared for any scenario we might encounter." The following weeks were a blur of intense training and preparation. Patrick and Xena led the strike team through rigorous exercises in the Unity's state-of-the-art simulation chambers. The room could transform into any environment, from the icy surface of a Kuiper Belt object to the cramped corridors of an enemy base. During one particularly grueling session, the team was navigating a virtual representation of the Galactic Equilibrium's command center. Xena was using her enhanced abilities to disable a series of electromagnetic locks when suddenly, the lights in the simulation chamber flickered and died. "What's happening?" Patrick's voice cut through the darkness. The ship's chief engineer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, we're experiencing a power fluctuation. It seems to be emanating from the simulation chamber." As the lights slowly came back online, Patrick noticed Xena looking at her hands, a mix of confusion and concern on her face. I think it was me," she said quietly. Patrick immediately called for a meeting with the ship's engineering team. "We need to develop safeguards," he instructed. "Xena's abilities are a tremendous asset, but we can't risk interference with the ship's systems during critical moments." As the Unity passed Jupiter's massive form, the ship's long-range sensors picked up an anomaly. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, tension evident in his tone. "Captain, we've detected an unidentified vessel trailing us at a distance." Patrick rushed to the bridge, Xena close behind. "Put it on screen," he ordered. A sleek, dark ship appeared on the main view screen, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Its design was unfamiliar, but its pursuit left little doubt about its allegiance. "Galactic Equilibrium," Patrick muttered. "Engage evasive maneuvers and activate the cloaking system." The Unity banked sharply, its advanced stealth technology enveloping the ship in a field that bent light and sensor readings around it. For tense minutes, they watched as the pursuing vessel searched in vain before finally turning back. As they approached Saturn's majestic rings, the ship's communication officer intercepted an encrypted transmission. "Captain, it's from one of our deep cover agents within the Galactic Equilibrium," she reported. The message contained crucial information about the Kuiper Belt base's layout and defenses. Patrick and Xena spent hours poring over the new intelligence, updating their assault plans and strategy. The Unity made a brief stop at Titan, Saturn's largest moon, to replenish supplies and perform necessary maintenance. As the crew worked, Patrick and Xena took the opportunity to explore the moon's alien landscape. They stood at the edge of a vast methane lake, their environmental suits protecting them from the extreme cold and toxic atmosphere. The orange haze of Titan's thick atmosphere cast an otherworldly glow over the liquid methane surface. "It's beautiful," Xena breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "In a strange, alien way." Patrick nodded, taking in the scene. "Moments like these remind me why we're fighting. to protect the wonders of our universe from those who would reshape it to their will. As they resumed their journey, passing the ice giants Uranus and Neptune, the strike team entered the final stages of preparation. In the ship's armory, they calibrated their weapons to function in the extreme cold of the Kuiper Belt. Xena spent hours in the simulation chamber, fine-tuning her control over her enhanced electromagnetic abilities. Finally, the Unity reached the outer edges of the Kuiper Belt. The ship's sensors probed the field of icy bodies, searching for signs of the hidden galactic equilibrium base. "Contact," the sensor operator announced. "Large structure detected, embedded within a Kuiper Belt object at coordinates 47 Mark 216. Patrick leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. "That's it. Bring us in quietly." As they approached their target, a sudden surge of energy erupted from the hidden base. A brilliant beam shot out, striking a distant ice dwarf. The strike team watched in astonishment as the celestial body began to transform before their eyes, developing an atmosphere and liquid water in a matter of minutes. "By the stars," Patrick whispered, the full implications of the galactic equilibrium's terraforming weapon sinking in. He turned to the team, his expression grim. "We're out of time. Prepare for immediate deployment." The Unity moved into position, using the newly transformed ice dwarf as cover. In the ship's airlock, Patrick addressed the assembled strike team one final time. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. We stop them here, or countless worlds will fall to their twisted vision of progress." Xena stepped forward, her body glowing faintly with electromagnetic energy. "We're ready, Patrick," she said, her eyes meeting his with unwavering grit. As the airlock began to cycle, preparing to send them out into the void of space, Patrick took a deep breath. The team's jetpacks were primed, their weapons charged. In moments, they would launch themselves towards a hidden galactic equilibrium base, carrying with them the hopes of multiple civilizations. The airlock door slid open, revealing the star-filled expanse of the Kuiper Belt. Patrick gave the signal, and as one, the strike team ignited their jetpacks, streaking towards their target in perfect formation. Formation in perfect unison. The cold vacuum of space enveloped them as they propelled themselves towards a hidden galactic equilibrium base. Patrick led the charge, his jetpack leaving a faint trail of ionized particles in his wake. Xena flew close behind, her body surrounded by a subtle electromagnetic aura. As they approached the debris field of the Kuiper Belt, Patrick signaled for the team to tighten their formation. Chunks of ice and rock hurtled past them, posing a constant threat. Xena's eyes narrowed in concentration as she extended her electromagnetic field around the entire strike team. Small particles bounced harmlessly off the invisible barrier, allowing them to navigate the treacherous terrain with relative ease. "Nice work," Patrick's voice crackled through the comm system. "Maintain formation and stay alert. We're approaching the outer perimeter." As they closed in on the hidden structure, Patrick's HUD lit up with warning signals. A complex network of sensor arrays surrounded the base, creating a nearly impenetrable web of detection. "Xena," Patrick called out, "we need those blind spots now." Without a word, Xena pushed her abilities to their limit. Her electromagnetic field pulsed and shifted, creating localized distortions in the sensor network. Patrick watched in awe as gaps appeared in the detection grid, just large enough for their team to slip through. "Move fast," Xena warned, strain evident in her voice. "I can't maintain this for long." The strike team darted through the openings, their movements precise and coordinated. As they reached the exterior of the base, Patrick scanned for entry points. His eyes locked onto a maintenance airlock, partially concealed by the base's outer structure. "There," he signaled to the team. "That's our way in." As they approached the airlock, Patrick activated his suit's hacking module. The airlock's control panel flickered to life, and after a tense moment, the outer door slid open with a hiss. Once inside, Patrick addressed the team. "We split up here. Alpha team with me. We're heading for the central control room. Beta team with Xena. Take out their power core and defense systems." Xena nodded, her eyes meeting Patrick's briefly before she turned to lead her group down a dimly lit corridor. Patrick watched them disappear around a corner before focusing on his own objective. The interior of the base was a maze of sleek, metallic corridors and chambers filled with technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, and strange energy fields pulsed rhythmically in containment units. As they pushed deeper into the facility, resistance intensified. Galactic equilibrium guards, a mix of humans, Vrax, and Chalneth, poured into the corridors. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons discharging and the acrid smell of ozone. Patrick took cover behind a bulkhead, returning fire with precision. Vrax team, flank left. Chalneth, push forward. He commanded, coordinating the diverse abilities of his strike force. Meanwhile, Xena's team encountered heavy opposition as they neared the power core. She raised her hand, focusing her electromagnetic energy into a concentrated burst. The EMP pulse rippled outward, frying the circuitry of the enemy's weapons and comms. "Move in," she ordered, leading the charge to the now defenseless guards. As they reached the power core, Xena marveled at the pulsing energy contained within. Without hesitation, she placed her hands on the control interface, her eyes glowing as she connected directly with the system. "Initiating controlled shutdown," she announced, her voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. Back in the main corridors, Patrick's team felt the effects of Xena's actions as the lights flickered and emergency systems engaged. They used the confusion to push forward, securing key positions as they fought their way towards the central control room. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the entire base. Patrick's comm crackled to life with an urgent message from the Unity. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy buildup. The base's terraforming device is powering up." Patrick's eyes widened as he realized the implications. "Xena, we need to move faster. They're activating their failsafe." Xena, having completed the power core shutdown, was already racing through the base to rejoin Patrick's team. Her enhanced speed and agility allowed her to navigate the chaos with ease, leaping over debris and sliding under closing blast doors. As Patrick's team reached the final approach to the control room, they encountered the heaviest resistance yet. Elite galactic equilibrium troops unleashed a barrage of advanced weaponry, forcing the strike team to take cover. Just as the situation seemed dire, Xena arrived, her body crackling with electromagnetic energy. She thrust her hands forward, creating a pulsing shield that absorbed the enemy fire. "Now!" Patrick shouted, and his team surged forward behind Xena's protection. They burst into the control room, coming face to face with the galactic equilibrium leadership. The room was a hub of advanced technology, with the terraforming device's controls taking center stage. Patrick engaged the military commander in hand-to-hand combat, their movements a blur of trained precision. Xena focused on the terraforming controls, her hands moving rapidly over the interface as she fought to disrupt the activation sequence. The hybrid members of the strike team secured the computer banks, downloading vast amounts of data that could unravel the full extent of the galactic equilibrium's operations. As the battle raged, the base began to shake violently. Alarms blared, warning of imminent structural failure. Patrick, dodging a vicious blow from his opponent, made a split-second decision. "Everyone out! We're evacuating with the prisoners," he shouted over the din of battle. Xena, her face contorted with effort, channeled one last surge of power into the terraforming device. Sparks flew as the controls overloaded, ensuring the weapon could never be used again. The strike team, now burdened with their captured leaders, fought their way back through the crumbling base. Sections of the structure were already exposed to the vacuum of space, debris floating eerily in zero gravity. Patrick and Xena worked in perfect sync, his tactical awareness guiding them through the safest route, while her electromagnetic abilities shielded them from the worst of the destruction. As they reached the maintenance airlock, Patrick could see the Unity maneuvering into position for extraction. The team launched themselves into space once more, the unconscious prisoners secured between them. Behind them, the galactic equilibrium base imploded, the terraforming device disappearing in a brilliant flash of light and energy. As they boarded the Unity, Patrick allowed himself a moment of relief. They had succeeded against adversity. With the immediate threat neutralized, Patrick ordered the ship to set course for Mars. As the Unity's engines hummed to life, he turned to Xena, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared understanding. They had won this battle, but both knew that their mission was just getting started. The journey home would be long, giving them time to interrogate their prisoners and analyze the recovered data. As the adrenaline of combat faded, Patrick felt the weight of their next challenge settling upon him. The true extent of the galactic equilibrium's influence remained to be uncovered, and the future of interspecies relations hung in the balance. As the Unity accelerated away from the Kuiper Belt, leaving behind the remnants of the galactic equilibrium base, Patrick gazed out at the star-filled expanse. The vastness of space stretched before them, holding both promise and peril for the alliance they had fought so hard to protect. The vastness of space stretched before them, holding both promise and peril for the alliance they had fought so hard to forge. As the Unity settled into its journey back to Mars, Patrick turned his attention to the captured galactic equilibrium leaders. He knew that extracting information from them was crucial to dismantling the organization's remaining power structures. In the ship's secure interrogation room, Patrick faced the first of the prisoners, a tall, gaunt human with piercing blue eyes. "Let's make this simple," Patrick said, his voice steady. "We know about your bases throughout the solar system. Start talking, and maybe we can work out a deal." The prisoner's lips curled into a sneer. "You have no idea what you're up against. The equilibrium is everywhere." Patrick leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Then enlighten me." For hours, Patrick and his team worked on the prisoners, using a combination of psychological tactics and the promise of leniency. Slowly, the galactic equilibrium leaders began to crack, revealing bits and pieces of valuable intelligence. Xena joined Patrick in analyzing the information. Her ability to process and connect seemingly disparate data proved invaluable as they pieced together a map of the equilibrium's hidden outposts and sleeper agents. "Patrick, look at this," Xena said, pointing to a holographic display. "There's a pattern to their base locations. And this one on Triton. It's a major hub for their operations in the outer solar system." Patrick studied the map, his mind racing with tactical possibilities. "We can't pass up this opportunity. Helm, set course for Neptune. We're making a detour." As the Unity approached the ice giant, Patrick briefed the small strike team. "We go in fast and quiet. Xena, you'll be our ace. Your electromagnetic abilities should give us the edge we need to bypass their security systems." The team deployed from the Unity in a stealth shuttle, skimming low over Triton's icy surface. As they neared the hidden base, Xena closed her eyes, extending her senses. "I can feel their defense grid," she said, her voice taut with concentration. "It's complex, but I think I can create a blind spot." Patrick watched in amazement as Xena's body began to glow faintly. Outside the shuttle, a shimmering distortion appeared in the air, bending light and energy around them. They slipped through the base's perimeter undetected, landing in a secluded ice canyon. The team moved swiftly, with Xena using her powers to short out security cameras and lock mechanisms. They encountered minimal resistance as they pushed deeper into the facility, the element of surprise working in their favor. In the base's control center, Patrick's team worked quickly to secure personnel and download critical data. "Xena, what have you got?" Patrick asked as she interfaced with the base's main computer. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. "Patrick, this is bigger than we thought. They have sleeper agents embedded in the governments of Earth, Vrax, and the Chalnoth homeworlds. And there's more." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. "We've been made," Patrick shouted. "Everyone, fall back to the shuttle." As they fought their way back through the base, Xena used her abilities to create electromagnetic barriers, deflecting enemy fire and clearing their path. They reached the shuttle just as galactic equilibrium reinforcements began to swarm the area. With the valuable data secured and the Triton base's operations disrupted, the strike team blasted off, racing back to the Unity. As they docked, Patrick couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had struck a significant blow against the galactic equilibrium, but he knew their mission was a long way to go. Back on the Unity's bridge, Patrick was about to order a course set for Mars when the communications officer called out, "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal. It's coming from a Chalnoth science vessel near Saturn." Patrick's brow furrowed. The coincidence was too great to ignore. "It could be a trap, but we can't take that chance. Helm, set course for the signal's origin. All hands, prepare for potential hostile engagement." As the Unity approached Saturn's majestic rings, the Chalnoth vessel came into view. Its hull was scarred with weapons fire, and Patrick could see shuttles docked to its airlocks, shuttles that didn't match Chalnoth design. "Galactic equilibrium," Patrick muttered. "They're after Chalnoth technology. Xena, we're going to need your skills for a spacewalk boarding operation. Think you're up for it?" Xena nodded, a determined gleam in her eye. "Just point me in the right direction." Patrick assembled a boarding team, equipping them with specialized spacewalk gear. In the airlock, he addressed the group. "Remember, our priority is rescuing the Chalnoth crew and securing any advanced tech before the Equilibrium can get their hands on it. Xena will provide EM shielding. Stay close and stay alert." The airlock cycled, and the team launched themselves towards a Chalnoth ship. Xena surrounded them with a protective electromagnetic bubble, deflecting debris and stray weapons fire. As they neared the vessel, Patrick could see galactic equilibrium forces through the viewports, engaged in a firefight with the Chalnoth defenders. "We breached through the aft airlock," Patrick commanded. "On my mark. Now!" The team crashed through the airlock, Xena's shield dissipating as they entered the ship's artificial gravity. Immediately, they were thrust into close-quarters combat with equilibrium boarders. Patrick ducked under a swing from an equilibrium soldier, countering with a swift strike to the solar plexus. Nearby, Xena used her powers to short out enemy weapons, giving their team a crucial advantage. They fought their way through the ship's corridors, rescuing trapped Chalnoth crew members and securing sensitive areas. Patrick's tactical acumen shone as he coordinated the team's movements, outmaneuvering the equilibrium forces at every turn. In the ship's main laboratory, they encountered the heaviest resistance. Patrick found himself back-to-back with Xena, facing down a group of elite equilibrium guards. "Any ideas?" Patrick asked, his breath coming in short gasps. Xena's eyes glowed with electromagnetic energy. "Just one. Brace yourself." She thrust her hands forward, releasing a massive electromagnetic pulse. The equilibrium soldiers' weapons and comm systems sparked and died, leaving them vulnerable to the boarding team's counterattack. With the ship secured and the Chalnoth crew safe, Patrick opened a channel to the Unity. "Mission accomplished. Prepare for towing operations. We're bringing our new friends home." As the Unity took the Chalnoth vessel in tow, setting course for a rendezvous with a Chalnoth fleet near Jupiter, Patrick allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had struck another blow against the galactic equilibrium and strengthened their alliance with the Chalnoth. But as he looked out at the vast expanse of space, he knew that greater challenges and opportunities lay ahead. Ahead, the vastness of space stretched before them, holding both promise and peril for the alliance they had fought so hard to forge. As the Unity approached the red planet, Patrick felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The familiar rust-colored sphere grew larger in the view screen, its surface etched with the sprawling networks of human settlements and terraforming projects. Initiating docking procedures, the helm officer announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Patrick nodded, turning to Xena. "Ready to face the brass?" She offered a wry smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Unity glided smoothly into Mars Colony's main spaceport, its massive form dwarfing the surrounding vessels. As the docking clamps engaged with a resounding thud, Patrick could see a delegation of human Vracs and Chalnith leaders waiting on the platform. "Looks like we've got a welcoming committee," he murmured. The airlock hissed open, and Patrick led his team onto Martian soil. Admiral Cross, his scales gleaming under the artificial lights, stepped forward. Beside him stood Matriarch Zalara, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the busy spaceport, and Dr. Elena Rossi, her lab coat crisp despite the long wait. "Captain Patrick, Specialist Xena," Admiral Cross rumbled. "Your success has exceeded our highest expectations." Before Patrick could respond, a flurry of activity erupted around them. Security teams swarmed the Unity, escorting the captured galactic equilibrium leaders to a heavily guarded transport. The prisoners shuffled past, their faces a mix of defiance and defeat. Dr. Rossi approached, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "The data you recovered. It's invaluable. My team is already working on decryption." "We don't have time for pleasantries," Matriarch Zalara interjected, her voice tinged with urgency. "We need a full debrief immediately." Patrick nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He and Xena, along with key members of their strike team, were quickly ushered into a secure briefing room deep within the Mars colony. The room was a hive of activity, with holographic displays flickering to life as they entered. Patrick and Xena took turns recounting their mission, from the battle at the Kuiper Belt Base to the daring raid on Triton. "And the sleeper agents?" Admiral Cross asked, his voice low. Xena stepped forward, activating a holographic map of the solar system. Red dots blinked into existence, representing confirmed equilibrium operatives. They're embedded deep, Sir Earth Vracs, even the Chalnith homeworlds. A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled leaders. Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the tension. "We're making progress on the data analysis." "There's more, Captain. Several hidden outposts throughout the system that we were previously unaware of." Admiral Krah's eyes narrowed. "We can't let this opportunity slip away. We need to strike while we have the advantage." The Admiral turned to Patrick, his gaze intense. "Captain, I'm assembling multiple task forces to target these remaining strongholds. I want you to lead one of them." Patrick straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Yes, sir, what's the target?" A new hologram sprang to life, showing a dense cluster of asteroids between Mars and Jupiter. "Intelligence suggests a major equilibrium base hidden in the belt. Your mission is to locate and neutralize it." Xena stepped closer to Patrick, her presence reassuring. "I'm going with you," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Admiral Cross nodded. "Agreed. Specialist Xena, you'll serve as second in command. Your unique abilities will be crucial for this operation." As the briefing concluded, Patrick and Xena found themselves whisked away to the medical bay. Dr. Rossi personally oversaw their examinations, her eyes widening as she reviewed Xena's scans. "Fascinating," she muttered. "Your electromagnetic abilities. They're stabilizing, integrating with your physiology on a cellular level." Xena flexed her fingers, feeling the familiar tingle of energy. I've noticed I have better control, less strain when I use them. Dr. Rossi nodded excitedly. This development could be game-changing for our mission. With the medical clearance complete, Patrick and Xena made their way to the docking bay where their new ship awaited. The Harmony stood before them, its sleek lines a testament to the combined technological prowess of humans, Vrax and Chalneth. As they boarded, Patrick marveled at the advanced system specifically designed to work with Xena's abilities. The ship hummed with potential, ready to push the boundaries of what was possible. With final preparations underway, Patrick and Xena took a moment to visit the Mars colony's biodome. They walked among the lush vegetation, a stark contrast to the barren Martian landscape outside. "It's beautiful," Xena said softly, reaching out to touch a vibrant leaf. Patrick nodded, his mind already racing with tactical considerations for their upcoming mission, a reminder of what we're fighting for. Their moment of peace was interrupted by a calm alert. "Captain, we're ready for launch." As they made their way back to the Harmony, Patrick could feel the anticipation building among the crew. They boarded the ship, taking their positions on the bridge. "All systems go," the helm officer reported. Patrick settled into the command chair, Xena standing at his side. "Take us out." The Harmony lifted off smoothly, its advanced propulsion systems quickly accelerating them away from Mars. As the red planet shrank behind them, long-range sensors began picking up unusual energy signatures from their target location. "Looks like the equilibrium is up to something big," Xena observed, her brow furrowed as she studied the readings. Patrick's lips pursed. "Helm, push the engines to maximum. We need to get there before they can execute whatever they're planning." The Harmony surged forward, racing against time as it entered the treacherous expanse of the asteroid belt. Ahead lay the hidden equilibrium base and the promise of a battle that could finally bring peace to the solar system. As they navigated through the dense field of space debris, Xena closed her eyes, extending her electromagnetic senses. A shimmering field of energy enveloped the Harmony, deflecting smaller asteroids and debris. "Approaching target coordinates," the navigation officer announced. Patrick leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the console. "All hands, prepare for battle. This is it. The moment we've been preparing for," Patrick announced, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through the bridge. "Tactical, bring all weapon systems online. Helm, prepare evasive maneuvers." As the Harmony plunged deeper into the asteroid field, the hidden galactic equilibrium base slowly came into view. Its jagged silhouette blended seamlessly with the surrounding space debris, a testament to the organization's cunning. "Xena, we're going to need that protective shield," Patrick said, turning to his second-in-command. Xena nodded, her eyes glowing with electromagnetic energy. She raised her hands, and a shimmering field enveloped the Harmony. Small asteroids and debris bounced harmlessly off the barrier as they approached their target. Suddenly, the base's defenses roared to life. Energy beams lanced out from concealed emplacements, while swarms of missiles erupted from hidden silos. "Evasive action," Patrick ordered, gripping his command chair as the ship banked hard to port. The Harmony's advanced weapon systems responded in kind, filling space with a dazzling array of counterfire. Xena's hands moved in intricate patterns, manipulating the electromagnetic shield to deflect incoming projectiles. "Multiple hostile signatures detected," the tactical officer reported. "Enemy fighters launching from concealed hangars." Patrick's mind raced, assessing the rapidly evolving battlefield. "Deploy our strike teams. We'll provide cover fire." As the Harmony strike fighters poured from the launch bays, Patrick coordinated their movements with precision. Xena interfaced directly with the ship systems, her electromagnetic abilities enhancing targeting accuracy and defensive capabilities. The space around the asteroid base erupted into chaos. Strike fighters engaged in furious dogfights with equilibrium vessels, while the Harmony traded salvos with the base's main batteries. Amidst the frenzy of battle, Patrick noticed an alarming reading on his console. Energy spike detected within the base, he announced, his brow furrowing. It's massive and growing rapidly. Xena's eyes widened as she processed the data. Patrick, if those readings are correct, they could be powering up some sort of doomsday device. Patrick's fist tight. They couldn't risk allowing the equilibrium to activate whatever weapon they had hidden within the asteroid. He made a split-second decision. Helm, bring us in close, he ordered. Xena, assemble an infiltration team. We're going to board that base and stop whatever they're planning. As the Harmony maneuvered through the maelstrom of battle, Patrick and Xena led a small team to the ship's launch bay. They donned specialized spacewalk suits designed for combat in zero-gravity environments. Our objective is to breach the base, locate the source of that energy spike, and shut it down, Patrick briefed the team as they climbed into sleek infiltration pods. Xena will provide electromagnetic shielding for our approach. Once inside, we move fast and hit hard. The pod bay doors opened, exposing them to the vacuum of space. Xena's powers surged, creating a protective bubble around the pods as they launched towards the asteroid base. Patrick watched through the pod's viewport as energy beams and missiles crisscrossed the void around them. Xena's shield flickered and pulsed, deflecting debris and absorbing glancing hits from enemy fire. With a bone-jarring thud, their pods impacted against the asteroid's surface. Patrick activated his pod's breaching mechanism, burning through the base's outer hull. As the metal glowed and melted, he readied his weapon. Breaching in 3, 2, 1, go! The infiltration team burst into the galactic equilibrium base, immediately engaging the surprised defenders. Patrick rolled to cover, his reflexes honed by years of combat experience. Beside him, Xena unleashed a wave of electromagnetic energy, shorting out nearby security systems and stunning a group of enemy soldiers. As they fought their way deeper into the base, Patrick could feel the vibrations of some massive machinery through the deck plates. Whatever the equilibrium was powering up, it was big. This way, Xena called out, her electromagnetic senses guiding them through the labyrinthine corridors. The energy source is just ahead. They rounded a corner and found themselves in a vast chamber. At its center stood a colossal device, its core pulsing with impossibly strong energy. Equilibrium technicians scrambled around its base, making last-minute adjustments. Patrick's blood ran cold as he recognized the machine's purpose. "It's a terraforming weapon," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They could use this to destabilize entire planets. Before they could formulate a plan, a crackling bolt of energy surged towards them. Xena threw up a hasty shield, barely deflecting the attack. Standing atop a control platform was a tall, imposing figure. Energy danced across their fingertips as they regarded the infiltration team with cold disdain. "So, the Alliance sends its pets to stop us," the Equilibrium operative sneered. "You're too late. Once this device activates, we'll reshape the solar system in our image." Xena stepped forward, her own powers flaring to match her opponent's. "Patrick," she said, her voice taut with concentration, "disable the device. I'll handle this one." As Xena engaged in a spectacular duel of electromagnetic forces with the Equilibrium operative, Patrick and the rest of the team fought their way to the terraforming weapons control systems. Energy arced and crackled overhead as Xena and her opponent traded blows, their powers clashing in brilliant flashes of light. Patrick ducked under a console, narrowly avoiding a stray bolt of energy as he worked to decipher the weapon's control mechanisms. With a sinking feeling, he realized that simply disabling the device wouldn't be enough. The Equilibrium had built in too many redundancies, too many fail-safes. They needed to destroy it completely, along with the entire base, to ensure this technology could never be used again. Patrick's mind raced, formulating a desperate plan. He turned to his team, shouting over the din of battle. We need to overload the base's power core. Use the energy from this terraforming device to trigger a chain reaction. As his team scrambled to carry out his orders, Patrick looked up to see Xena locked in an intense struggle with the equilibrium operative. Her face was a mask of concentration as she pushed her abilities to their limit. Sensing Patrick's plan through their deep bond, Xena redoubled her efforts. With a primal cry, she unleashed a massive surge of electromagnetic energy, overwhelming her opponent's defenses and trapping them in a crackling energy field. "It's done!" Patrick called out as the base's systems began to wail in alarm. "We need to move now." Xena disengaged from her immobilized opponent and joined Patrick as they fought their way back through the chaos of the disintegrating base. Equilibrium forces, realizing the danger, threw themselves at the infiltration team in a desperate bid to stop them. They reached their entry point, but as Patrick moved to enter the escape pod, a stray energy blast caught him in the back. He stumbled, pain blossoming across his body. Without hesitation, Xena enveloped Patrick in an electromagnetic cocoon, stabilizing his condition. She guided them both into the pod, her powers straining to maintain the protective field as she launched them away from the doomed base. As their pod hurtled through space, Patrick regained consciousness. Through the viewport, he could see the Harmonies still engaged in fierce combat with the remaining Equilibrium ships. "All Allied vessels, this is Captain Patrick," he transmitted, his voice rough with pain and exertion. "Fall back immediately. I repeat, fall back to minimum safe distance." The task force disengaged, pulling away from the asteroid base just as the chain reaction reached its crescendo. The entire structure erupted in a massive explosion, the force of the blast sending shock waves through the asteroid field. As the light from the explosion faded, Patrick turned to Xena, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared relief and understanding. They had dealt a decisive blow to the galactic equilibrium, but both knew that their journey and their growing bond was far from finished. The Harmony's tractor beam locked onto their pod, drawing them in. As they prepared to board, Patrick couldn't help but wonder what new challenges awaited them in the aftermath of this hard-fought victory.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.